Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto becomes husband of Amaterasu part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Victory is mine, Yondaime. A cold red eye met vibrant blues as it waited for the inevitable end of its foe. Hands stretched out, chains dangling on each side, it was undoubtedly the final blow. Obito could sense it. Huh! A gasp of air passed through his lips when the man in front of him vanished from sight, leaving no trail. Rasengan! It started as a minor sensation on his back. So insignificant he could have ignored it had it not been for the explosion of pain that followed. He grunted in pain as the ground beneath him shattered from the force that the assault brought with itself. You are as fast as ever, he managed to articulate. His words were full of disrespect for the man in front of him. Flash. His heart stopped for a moment when his opponent vanished yet again, his bright blonde hair being the only indication that he had reappeared in front of him. Madara. Behind the mask, a small smile made its way onto Obito's face. He rose to his full height and stared at his opponent. I will not let you destroy my village, and I will do everything in my power to make sure it remains safe. Minato, the Yondaime Hokage, whispered, his voice full of authority and confidence. Haha, Obito cackled as he adjusted the mask properly on his face. You cannot do anything now, Yondaime. Your village will be destroyed, whether by me or the Q. Squelch. Not anymore. A lone red eye widened in shock as an ominous spiral of pain began to immobilize his body. Obito tried to speak, but instead of words, only deluges of red rain departed his mouth. His heartbeats rose to unimaginable levels when his opponent, the fabled Namikaze Minato, impaled his kunai deep into his chest. It's over. For the first time in his life, Obito truly felt terrified at the words that came out of his teacher's mouth. They were hollow, even more than his own. So the rumors were true after all. Composed as he might look to others, his teacher would do everything necessary when it came to protecting what he loves. Groaning in pain, Obito fell to the ground when his teacher withdrew the weapon out of his chest. No, a whisper fled his lips as he rapidly placed his hand above the critical wound. It was not supposed to end like this. He was supposed to kill Minato, not vice versa. His red eye widened slightly when he saw his teacher leave the area. No! Obito could not let him leave like this. He still had to hurt him, make him pay for what he caused to Rin. Minato-san, he tried to enunciate, wanting to at least damage the man emotionally for the last time, but his teacher beat him even in that. Goodbye, Obito. Obito's heart stopped, a rare smile etched on his bruised face as his lifeless eye stared at the white clouds above, illuminated by the stars and the moon in the night sky. Soon those clouds vanished as a storm of red began to envelop the whole area, causing Minato to look up grimly. He knew that he would be in for the toughest fight of his life. Muttering a curse and a prayer, he flashed towards the red tempest, while the bright lights of multiple explosions deluged the silent atmosphere. Outside Konoha. Debris. Fire. Rain. Destruction was all his eyes could see. Burnt trees, decimated mountains, and massive amounts of rubble lay awry on the ground as he struggled to keep his breath in check. This was not supposed to happen. This was not how he and his wife planned to celebrate this night. He was supposed to be holding their son in his arms with his wife lying on the bed beside them, smiling at the soft giggles of their baby boy. I'm going to spoil my baby boy. He will be the biggest mama's boy in all of Konoha. Another stream of hot tears trickled down his cheeks. His hollow blue eyes that were gazing at nothing veered over to the dead body of his wife. Lying on the cold ground of his village, his wife's body was covered with countless bruises, blood, soil, and a giant gash going all the way through her abdomen. Kushina, he murmured in a faint voice, barely holding the hand sign needed for the completion of his jutsu. Why did everything turn out to be like this? What did we do wrong? All we wanted was a small family of our own. His whispers had no effect on the dead woman as she remained lifeless on the ground with a small smile on her face. He could still see her tears. You can act tough, but you can't fool me. So wake up. Wake up for your son. At least say something to him. His body trembled as a fit of sobs left his mouth, blood immediately following the cries. She is already dead, mortal. A cold shiver scampered down Minato's spine when he heard the plain words of the Shinigami, spoken in that ghastly and hollow voice. They were harsh, ruthless even, but most importantly, they were true. Kushina was dead and there was nothing he could do to bring her back. I know, he bitterly acknowledged. The Shinigami scowled at the absence of conviction in his summoner's voice. In every other reality, his summoner had always sealed the beast with a confident smile on his face. You are different from your other resemblances, Namikaze the death god whispered, sharp teeth glimmering brightly in the dark night. Other resemblances? Did you truly believe this is the only reality to exist? There are infinite worlds, some like yours, others different. Some alive, others dead. You and your counterparts from these worlds happen to be mere afterthoughts when seeing the bigger picture. That took Minato by surprise. To find out he wasn't the only him, and there were a lot more of him from the Reaper itself, was something he never expected would happen to him. He could by no means predict this tidbit, but still to have this knowledge bestowed on him in his last moments was surreal, so to say, but so was this whole situation. How? He could have asked a multitude of questions, questions that would have eaten away his sanity if he were to survive, but this one question was at the forefront of his mind. The love you have for your family surpasses your resemblances. You are an anomaly. Every other resemblance sealed the beast without another thought. Here you stand, reluctant to do what you have done countless times before. A sliver of a smile appeared on the bruised face of the Hokage. Why wouldn't I hesitate? They are my family after all. The Shinigami frowned upon hearing the unusual answer. Now, the death god was even more interested in this rendition of its summoner. You amuse me, a hollow chuckle escaped the cold purple lips. You do not want to seal the beast in your child. No. Then do not. Now that caught Minato off guard. What? Slowly he turned his head to the direction where the being who ruled over death was standing. Perplexed and confused, he blinked at the powerful entity. What do you mean by that? Do not seal the beast. Stop the ritual. The Shinigami glanced at the Kyuubi, or at least the last remaining reminiscent of the beast. It was almost sealed into the boy, only a snap of his finger was needed to finalize the ritual. I can't do that. It will put the village in danger. It will not, Namikaze. I will ensure it. Minato remained silent for a while, trying his best to decipher the motive of the god behind that absurd proposal. Why? He began. Why are you doing this? What will you get from it? The death god smiled. Change. For eons, you and I have done this ritual. I wish to see something different this time, something very different. Different? Yes, the death god nodded its head, confirming the suspicion of its summoner. So tell me, Namikaze, what do you want? A happy life with your wife and your child? Will you do as your resemblances have done and leave your child all alone to suffer in this tragic world, where even your beloved student turned into a mindless fool? The jab did its work as Minato recoiled at the mention of Obito. Why did you do this, Obito? His heart broke into 1,000 pieces again, unable to handle the fact that his own student would do something like this to his family. His thoughts were interrupted when the Shinigami spoke again, this time rather impatiently. Choose. He didn't know whether it was his own will to live or the yearning to have a family beside him. Minato didn't even think about it for a second before nodding his head. I want my family back. Pathetic and selfish as he might sound, he still wanted a family of his own over everything else. Very well. The death god whispered as the temperature dropped down in a matter of seconds. Soon, the cold and marred hands of the death touched its summoner's skin and brought out the object it desired. Ha. Precarious giggles of the Shinigami deluged the clearing with the madness they possessed. The Shinigami chuckled, his vacant eyes staring at the child with mild amusement and enthusiasm. You are very unique. Young Namikaze's cold words left the mouth of the powerful entity. You have not even completed a day in this world, but you have already started challenging powerful beings, huh? The death smiled at his own lame statement. Sharp yellow eyes glanced down at the abdomen of the child. Let it go, Naruto, the entity groaned, realizing how difficult this simple work could be. This child, this small bundle of flesh and bones in front of him, refused to let go of the beast's chakra. It was like he had absorbed all of it within his small body. No. I cannot extract the remaining chakra. It is impossible now. The depleted god finally accepted defeat, totally distraught with the fact that a mere child was able to overpower his most powerful seals. Well, it was wrong to say that he couldn't, rather, he wasn't willing to. The child's body and soul had, in a matter of minutes, made the beast's chakra his own. Removing it would have damaged both his chakra coils as well as his soul. It's amusing to see you accept your defeat like this, Shinigami. Shinigami froze as soon as he heard a familiar melodious voice. It was her. He was sure of it, and that mere thought was enough to place fear in his mind. Slowly, he turned around, making sure to not look into her eyes. Amaterasu, the death god whispered, his voice as fragile as the child sleeping peacefully on the altar behind him. Amaterasu, the goddess of universe, smiled, cold black eyes regarding him with curiosity and amusement. You summoned me? She asked, and at the confirming nod of his head continued. Why? A straightforward question fled her mouth. A Shinigami paused, his mouth closed due to the lack of an appropriate answer. What should I tell her? The poor god thought silently. Never had he summoned Amaterasu like this, especially in this dimension. She never liked it for some reason. The absence of words and confidence was palpable on his eerie face, something that the beauty in front didn't fail to notice. Why are you shaking, Shinigami? The beautiful woman whispered. If you are afraid of me, then you are worrying about nothing. I will not do anything to you. I'm actually happy that you summoned me here. My brother was being restless and stupid again. The irritation in her voice, clear and obvious to hear. Haha, the death god chuckled, an uncomfortable smile plastered on his face. Susanoo can be stubborn sometimes, he whispered, and had to hold back a giggle when the woman groaned, doing nothing to hide the disdain she held for her sibling. As for the reason why I called you here, he trailed off as he slowly moved his attention back to the child. Amaterasu was fast to follow him. A child? She blinked, eyeing the concealed little bundle with scrutiny and confusion. Did you summon me, the goddess of the universe, to take care of a mere child? Her exclamation earned a surprised look from the death god, who immediately began to shake his head in fear. No! I didn't call you for that, Amaterasu. That would be very disrespectful from my side. The translucent face of Shinigami took a serious shift when he looked back at the boy. I want you to take this child and 2 other souls to your primary realm. Why? I want to watch my summoner's life. Huh? What type of request is that, Shinigami? Amaterasu asked, flicking a few strands of black hair behind her ear. Shinigami kept his calm, abstaining from annoying the goddess any further. It's strange, I know. Something like this has never been done before, and that is why I want to do it this time. My summoner, Namikaze Minato, is a very powerful individual, Amaterasu. He is once-in-a-generation born prodigy with unparalleled potential, but sadly, he never gets an opportunity to showcase his talent. In every dimension that I oversee, my summoner dies before he can get what he truly desires. What does he desire? A family. My summoner yearns for a family. He will do anything to get a chance to live a happy life with his wife and his child. Anything. Shinigami intentionally emphasized that one particular word because even he knew what the deity in front of him wanted. Amaterasu didn't say anything as her mind was busy assessing the words she had just heard from the mouth of her associate. He might be cunning, evil, and even ruthless, but her subordinate was not a liar. Shinigami was a very honest being, so whatever he had just told her was bound to be true, and if that was the case. Even though I respect you in your judgment, I think you are over-exaggerating the skills of this individual. I don't think. My summoner is far more powerful than any of your followers. The seriousness on his face doubled as an aura of death surrounded his body. Excuse me? Shinigami didn't even blink at her silent threat. My summoner is far more powerful than any of your followers, even Yasaka, he whispered again, not intimidated by the lady now. If there was one thing he absolutely detested, it was the questioning of his judgment. It was insulting. Amaterasu didn't agree with Shinigami. She had seen Yasaka go all out before, and she had to admit, it was somewhat terrifying. She had never seen MT Fuji act up so violently, and she had to run some major interference that day. However, she didn't argue any further. It would end up nowhere, and they would each insist that their summoner was stronger. She also saw something she had never seen in the eyes of her ally before. It was there, hidden behind the hollowness of his yellow eyes. You admire this summoner of yours, don't you, Shinigami? She smiled. Yes. He is truly a hero, Amaterasu. After a brief moment of contemplation, the goddess nodded her head. Then I will take him to my world. Really? Yes. I will also permit you to make periodic arrivals there. You are no longer prohibited from traveling to my realm. Shinigami was at the loss of words. Never ever in his wildest dreams had he thought this day would come where he would be allowed to visit the true realm of Shinto. It was surreal. Thank you, Ama. Give me the child. I want to see it. Just like that, the surprise vanished from his face and was replaced by panic and worry. Naruto, he lamented as gently picked up a child with his astral hands and hovered him over to the goddess, who, for some unknown reason, was looking absolutely thrilled to see the child. Here. Amaterasu carefully grabbed the child from her ally's hands. She smiled as he brought the concealed bundle close to her bosom. Now I'll let me see your cute. Whatever she was about to say perished on her lips as soon as her eyes landed on the child's face. He was beautiful, no, outright gorgeous and cute. His blonde tresses were as bright as her sun, while his deep violet eyes were as stunning as her cold black orbs. He was perfect, and the small smile he had on his cute little face only made him more fascinating in her eyes. She giggled when the boy tried to reach her face with his small hands. Do you want to touch my face? She asked, lowering her head a little so that the child could touch her cheeks. She cooed when she saw little Naruto making grabby motions at her face, and giggled when she felt his tiny hands pinch her cheeks. There, now you can touch me, my dear. She paused and turned over to an utterly shocked Shinigami, whose mouth was comically hanging open at the sight. What is his name? And Naruto. She nodded and veered around. Naruto, her eyes blazed with happiness as she uttered his name. What was not commonly known about Amaterasu is the fact that she had always wanted a child of her own to pamper and spoil. A desire which only grew stronger over time after that bastard Susanoo killed Suki Fujiwara, her favorite attendant, in a fit of rage. She had found Suki and raised her from a baby into a fine young woman. The joy she felt, seeing someone who was effectively her daughter in all but flesh and blood, grow up and succeed was indescribable. The pain she felt after her death was soul-crushing, and she would never forget that feeling. Even now, her heart still clenches in pain whenever she recalls what happened. But now, as she gazed upon Naruto's happy face, she could feel that pain fading away. She could feel her heart grow lighter with each second spent with this little bundle of joy. She felt like this was a second chance for her. Another chance for her to experience the joy of raising a child from infancy. She gently kissed the infant on the head, and lovingly whispered to herself, "My dear little Naruto." Shinigami didn't want to ruin her mood, but he felt that it was his duty to inform her about something very important. Amaterasu Naruto already has a mother. You can't take her place, he whispered timidly, fearing that he might anger the most influential figure of the Shinto faction. Amaterasu blinked. Already has a mother? Her voice decreased to a soft murmur as she glanced back at the child who surprisingly was still smiling at her. You already have a mother, my child. The desperation in her voice was palpable, but to Shinigami's utter surprise and relief, the sadness didn't last long. Soon her lips curved up, eyes again flooded with love and affection. No problem, I will be your wife then. Shinigami was once again rendered speechless. This was completely out of the blue. They had literally just met, and she is proclaiming to be his wife? Even if one overlooked the suddenness of things, they could not possibly disregard the sheer differences between the two. What? How? Huh? Shinigami's mind struggled to reboot as he heard Amaterasu's declaration. He couldn't comprehend what was going on. Amaterasu was known to be a cruel and cold goddess to those she didn't see as family, and at best, disinterested and distant to everyone else. Yet right now, one could never associate the borderline evil goddess to the woman who was playfully poking at the cheeks of a happy, giggling infant. This does not make sense. One is immortal, the other is a god. Their energies are completely incompatible, and they just wouldn't match. Amaterasu could accidentally erase Naruto from existence with a sneeze. Shinigami's mind was so engrossed in this inner turmoil that he didn't notice everything suddenly falling silent and the air going cold. Putting the incompatibility in powers aside, they are far too different in age for each other. Amaterasu is thousands of years old, yet Naruto would be so little compared to her. Wait, could she possibly be a Shotak dash? His thoughts were cut off as his brain rebooted and his danger senses kicked into overdrive. He frantically looked around to see what was emitting so much killing intent and froze up in shock when he saw a shadowed Amaterasu with glowing eyes grinning dementedly at him. I said that out loud, didn't I? Shinigami squeaked out, his voice a complete contrast to earlier. Amaterasu did not respond. Her grin only stretched wider as she slowly started to advance, her arms raised as if going to strangle someone. He wondered if this was what death felt like. Shinigami started backing away as Amaterasu slowly crept towards him, maintaining that deranged smile. As he backed away, he idly noted the irony of a god of death, feeling what it's like to be on the verge of death. He gazed towards his only hope of not dying permanently, and was surprised to see little Naruto looking curiously at them. Realizing that this was his only chance, he quickly pointed at Naruto and yelled out, Amaterasu, your pressure is making Naruto uncomfortable. With that single sentence, the pressure vanished completely, and the air returned to normal as Amaterasu seemingly teleported towards Naruto's side and started cooing at him once again, causing him to start waving his tiny arms around while gurgling cheerfully. Shinigami let out a sigh of relief and prepared to get away from the insane goddess before she noticed, but a cold voice made him freeze up again. Shinigami, you live this time. But don't think that I will forget about everything you said. You now owe me a favor for sparing your life. As Shinigami started sputtering at the unfairness, Amaterasu's voice cut him off. Shut up or I'll kill you. Elsewhere, a certain red-headed woman with a lock of hair over her right eye, wearing a blue dress, sneezed. Deciding to escape before the situation deteriorated, he quickly vanished into nothingness, leaving behind a baby Naruto in the arms of the goddess of the sun. It was surreal. No, that did not quite fit the situation given what had happened. Reality-shattering would have sounded much better. Minato went from seeing his wife dead by his side, and his son's future unknown, to becoming a celebrated businessman in a new world with a goddess telling him that she had provided him and his family a new life here, on the request of Shinigami. A world where gods, devils, angels, yokai, vampires, and even ghosts existed, no less. A place where the stuff of legends and myths were reality. It made him wonder if something like this was present in his homeworld too. What if they were just unaware of the... Youch! His thoughts were cut short by a kick to his shin, courtesy of the grinning blonde boy standing in front of him. Haha, Got you, Dad. Mom was right, it is so easy to catch you when you are thinking about dumb things. The 5-year-old smirked at his father, his big violet eyes glittering mischievously as he sprinted around the older man in order to assert himself as an energetic freak. However, the baby-size orange tracksuit he had on his body only made him look cuter rather than an athlete. Oh, Naruto. What will I ever do with you? Shaking his head slightly with a small smile on his face, he bent down to ruffle the boy's hair, making him mock pout at being treated like a kid, while internally enjoying the affectionate display. Naruto, the things that I think about are not dumb or meaningless. They all are a part of the bio-UCH. Okay, stop. I get it. Boring topic. I'll stop. Getting your cheek suddenly being pinched by a bored 5-year-old hurt apparently. It hurt a lot. This boy really did inherit his mother's attention span, one that would make a goldfish jealous. Naruto could not listen to his dad for even a few minutes. Moving on, we should be getting back now, son, unless you want your mom to chew us both out for being late for breakfast. The cursed words. Ones that should not be uttered. Ones that stirred memories of a terrifying memory, were what Minato had just mentioned. Naruto still had a tiny bump on his head that had yet to heal from the 10 days ago when he was 15 minutes late to dinner. Yeah, let's go back. Quick, quick. Don't want to get another bump before this one heals. Rubbing the little bump on his head, Naruto grumbled, looking thoroughly displeased with the fact that his mom hit him so hard for a minor mistake, but then again, she was famous for her fiery temperament. Ag. A sharp shiver seized the spines of the gods as they were forced to witness the absolute bloodbath that was transpiring in front of them. It was cruel and horrific to observe. It was expected of the inflictor, as they became infamous in the realm for exacting these kinds of punishments. Amaterasu, leave them, one of the gods, the all-powerful princess of the moon, Tsukuyomi ordered her sister. Self-preservation instincts kicked in after making her declaration to her sibling. The room fell silent after the white-haired goddess repeated her request. Fear raced through her body as her heart rate skyrocketed to unprecedented levels for the first time in a millennium. Hee hee. Mellifluous giggles of her sister echoed throughout the room, prompting every god present to twist and turn uncomfortably in their respective seats out of fear. My dear sister, Amaterasu finally glanced at the influential deities, her slender fingers dripping with an ominous red mixture of blood and flames. Don't tell me what to do. I'm the goddess of the sun, I see everything that happens underneath the sky, so believe me when I say I know what I'm doing. Now shut up and let me do my work, she whispered, her face devoid of any emotion. Tsukuyomi scowled at the provided excuse. There was no reason for you to kill someone as insignificant as this rogue devil. Why did you even get involved in this matter in the first place? As far as I know, you don't care about any faction other than ours. Every word was spoken in such a timid manner that most wondered if Tsukuyomi was whimpering instead of arguing. Amaterasu didn't answer. She refused to acknowledge that trivial question of her sister. Tsukuyomi noticed the slight hesitation that crossed her sister's face. Is this related to him? It was a random question, one that came out of her mouth for no reason, but when her sister glanced away, the query proved to be meaningful. I see, she smiled, her lips curved up in the most arrogant way possible, something that scared the other gods because of the possible reactions it could lead to between the two. Even if it were, why would that matter? The goddess of the sun asked as she resumed the punishment of the fiends, face gleaming in satisfaction whenever the devil wailed in pain and agony. Streaks of beautiful white hair fluttered in the air as Tsukuyomi shook her head, her red eyes filled with nothing but amusement and warmth. If it is related to him. Each and every entity present in the room stopped whatever they were doing and glanced at the white-haired goddess, waiting for her response to the ongoing dilemma. Then kill them all. I don't care about these stupid beings who dare to harm my cute and lovely Dana-chan. The lack of love and forgiveness in Tsukuyomi's voice took everyone by surprise, even the cold-hearted Amaterasu, who looked at her sister with the most unpleasant expression on her face. Don't call him that, Amaterasu whispered harshly. Her cold voice came out threatening anyone who dared to tread into their matter, and needless to say, everyone was content to keep up their distance from the two sisters. Even the mischievous Susanoo, who usually took every opportunity to pick on his sisters, decided to keep well away from the two. Tsukuyomi smiled and adjusted the lengthy yet elegant red piece of fabric around her white blouse and arms. Why would I? He is my Dana-chan after all. She defended her initial proclamations in a voice as sweet as honey. If anyone is going to marry him, then the obvious choice would be me. The temperature of the room dropped, a move that propelled every god to be on their guard. Things were about to get serious, something they really didn't want to be a part of given the topic of discussion. Tsukuyomi, you little bitch. Cold black eyes met the vibrant red as they engulfed the other in a battle of dominance where both participants refused to yield. Do you really think he likes you? I mean, look at you. Slender fingers pointed at the modest body of the moon goddess. Your body lacks the elegance of adulthood, something he likes very much. How are you going to take him away from me if your body can't even keep him happy? The question boomed throughout the room, loitering for a possible answer from the white-haired girl. Tsukuyomi frowned, annoyance showing on her face as if it was a part of it. The words that spewed out of her sister's mouth were expected, so she wasn't annoyed at that. What made her irritated was the confidence Amaterasu carried on her face while speaking those words. She spoke as if she knew everything about him. A small pout materialized on her plump lips. Who says I can't keep him happy? I'll have you know, he called me the most beautiful girl he had ever met, even more beautiful than that idiot Seraphal. The pout only deepened when she mentioned the name of her eternal enemy, Seraphal. Seraphal, who for some reason or another, was one of Naruto's most beloved girls in the whole world, all because of her television show. Damn her and her stupid circus that she calls a show seriously. Out of anyone he could have liked, why did he choose that stupid devil? He had never even met her, and that's what baffled her the most. Tsukuyomi could only imagine his surprise when he finally gets to meet that child of a woman. It would be terrible, she would make sure of that. Seraphal, I need to erase her existence. That woman is a serious threat to both of us, Tsukuyomi. He is already completely enamored with her and her show, so seducing him would be easy for her. No, we cannot let that happen. He is ours for now. Absolutely. She cannot take him away from me, I mean us. We need to make sure she stays away from him. The day she meets him will be the day we lose him, and we cannot let that happen, not on my watch. Everyone else in the room's sweat dropped at the conversation which was going on between the two. It was astonishing how a mere child could make two of the most powerful goddesses fawn over him like this. The strange thing was that they didn't even know how he did it. For as long as they could remember, Amaterasu swore to be his wife as soon as she met him, while Tsukuyomi fell for him as soon as she saw his smile. Both the explanations were absurd, but for some reason, none of the gods had the guts to object to their insanity. Oh come on, dear sisters, well, the exception of one stupid being, who also went by the name of Susanoo. He is just a child. Leave him alone and marry someone worthy instead, someone like me, you know, the god of the sea exclaimed in glee, looking very proud at what he had just spoken. Ah, my dear brother. The smile that Susanoo had on his face vanished as soon as his sisters turned their heads in unison towards him, both sporting identical, empty expressions. A lump stuck in his throat when Amaterasu's face suddenly stopped being blank and flashed him that chilling smile that plainly said, I will eviscerate you and use your intestines as a noose. His fear only grew bigger when Tsukuyomi joined her too. Look! Run, Amaterasu whispered, her hair shadowing her fury-laced eyes as she spoke. Huh! If you wish to live, then disappear into the air or sea, whatever you prefer. It was Tsukuyomi who spoke this time, her voice echoing ominously. Understandable, have a nice day. Susanoo squeaked out and vanished. Not a moment too soon, as a beam of concentrated sunfire and dust incinerated the spot he was in. Namike's residence, Ko. Say ah. Ah, my little sunshine, say ah. Naruto, say ah. Ah. A bead of sweat appeared on the backside of Minato's head as he watched the unique interaction between his wife and son. The fearful look that his son had on his face only made the interaction funnier. They both are the epitome of stubbornness, he giggled, and took a spoonful of ramen broth. And careless eaters too, he added in afterthought as he tasted the thick fluid in his mouth. It was spicy and hot, but most importantly it was unhealthy. They really should stop eating. He was silenced by a hand on his mouth. Confused, Minato looked down and saw that it was Naruto who had placed a hand on his mouth. He was about to ask for an explanation but stopped when he saw beads of sweat on his son's forehead. Minato. His initial discomfort evolved into fear when his wife flashed him that chilling smile. Heard that it wasn't a question, he already knew his wife had heard him, otherwise she wouldn't smile at him like that. The smile on her face reached soul-damning levels as her hair began to dance around her face in a demonic harmony. No dear, I happen to be deaf. The dryness in her words could have sucked up an ocean. Fuck, he was fucked. There was no escape from his wife's wrath. Kushina. She don't say anything, Minato. I very well know what you meant. But ramen is unhealthy. You can't disagree with that. Kushina went silent for a while. Okay? And? A frown marred her beautiful face. Health can fuck. Language. After giving a sheepish look to her son, Kushina glared at her husband. So where was I? Oh yes, health can go to hell when it comes to ramen, right Naruto? Her eyes turned to Naruto, who immediately stiffened under her gaze. Right. The smile on her face wavered a little. Of course. Naruto yelled, giving a mock salute to his mother. Ramen is the food of gods. Nothing can beat it. He finished his statement with a dramatic look on his face, something that made Minato a little skeptical. It was as if Naruto was trained to respond like this. Spring rolls with sesame? Naruto froze, chopsticks clasped in his fingers as he stared at his father. Baked tonkatsu? The little boy started shaking. Mina, noticing her son was losing the strength to withstand reality, she tried to stop her husband, but it was already too late. Curry udon? Naruto swallowed a lump that formed in his throat at the mention of these delicious foods. Minato smiled. Tell me, son, aren't they better than ramen? His voice was full of mirth, as he knew he already won the battle when his son looked away from him. Don't worry about your mother, she won't do anything to you. Naruto glanced at his father, and then at his mother before sighing to himself. Whenever they fought, he was constantly compelled to mediate these stupid arguments. No matter what he chose now, he was bound to disappoint one of them. No, and with the most innocent smile on his face, he decided to go with his mother's preference. Stubborn as she might be, she was still the most caring person in the world, one who had spoiled him with her love to no end. Not to mention it would be detrimental to his assured existence if he chose to disappoint her. As for his father, well, Naruto was sure he would understand. After all, the man only wanted them to be happy in this strange world. He was also sure that his father wouldn't want him to die for disrespecting ramen. Whatever Naruto was thinking came to an abrupt halt when his mother suddenly grabbed him from the other side of the table and shoved his face into her. My Naruto loves his mother so much her fake sniffs only made him smile more. But! Kushina pouted at her husband. Silence, Minato! She scolded and bonked him on the head with her free hand. Didn't you hear what my son said? He likes ramen more. It was Minato's time to pout. He's my son too, of course he was going to say that. He's a mama's boy, my son doesn't like me. A dark cloud of depression materialized right above his head, raining what could be called descent of sad tears. Both mother and son deadpanned at the weird behavior of their family member. The only thing that kept them away from reacting further was the frequency of this behavior. Really? You're doing this again? You've done this over 500 times since he could talk. Even Naruto can tell that you are full of bull. Language. Kushina looked at her son and sighed. Regulating language had to be more challenging than having to carry her son for 9 months. Growing up with these words as part of your daily vocabulary made it incredibly difficult. Naruto just shook his head, knowing very well that his father was faking, but he decided to humor the man. Okay, ramen isn't that good, he groaned, shaking his head in disappointment at himself. Out of all the absurd parents in the world, why did he end up with the most dramatic pair? Really? What? A visible tick appeared on Naruto's head when both of his parents shouted at the same time, one in glee while the other in shock. Yes. Minato smiled. See. At least Naruto knows the harmful effects of ramen on health. Okay. That's fine. Go on, change sides. You've betrayed me worse than Anakin betrayed Obi-Wan, just remember that. Kushina pushed him away from her bosom, setting him down. You don't even know what that means. You've never seen Star Wars. Isn't this also cheating? You're using the guilt card here, Naruto said, completely befuddled by what was going on. No, you always do that. No, I don't. Yes, you do. You don't like me, Naruto-chan. I won't talk to you now. Mama. Humph. Bye. Naruto immediately looked at his father, who immediately began to run away from him as fast as he could. You both are destroying my childhood. But. Humph. Bye. Minato sighed for what seemed to be the 1000th time as he waited for his guest in his luxurious office. This guest for whom he was waiting on was a rather important figure in this world, or rather the area from where his company had originated. Xiaticus Gremory, he glanced at the file in front of him. From a simple look over, the man was a rather important individual of the business world. His company had shares in almost every successful business in the town. From humble cafes to lavish and expensive hotels, the man sustained stakes in everything. But then again, he is a devil. Wealth is incredibly common amongst them, especially if they are from a well-known house like the Gremory. The mirth in his eyes increased a little as he tried to imagine the hidden existences of this amazing world. In the past few years, Minato had seen almost every supernatural creature. Some were kind and peaceful while others were violent and dubious. Of all the supernaturals he had come in contact with, the fallen angels and devils were two of the most vicious. He still remembered having to kill several of them when he first arrived into this world. They tried to attack his family, but he showed them he was no ordinary human. He mentally scoffed at the memory of those fights. Minato-sama. Minato looked at the entrance of his office and smiled when he saw his most trustworthy employee standing there. Takahashi-ji-san. He chirped, no doubt very pleased to see the man after so long. Takahashi Shinni, a 70-year-old man, also known as the main butler of Namikaze's house, was someone who had earned himself an important spot in the hearts of the family he served. From the moment Minato arrived in this different world, Takahashi had always been there to support him in his endeavors. His devotion to the well-being of him and his family was something Minato had never seen anywhere else, not even in his own world where respecting Hokage was an integral part of being a shinobi. The guests are here, Minato-sama. Oh, Minato hummed. Wait, guests? His eyes grew a little wide at the new information. He tried to determine who else would have come along to this meeting. Yes, Minato-sama. But from what I remember, Xiaticus was supposed to come alone. Takahashi smiled at his young master. You are absolutely right, Minato-sama, but for some reason, Xiaticus-san has brought some company with him. A small frown appeared on Minato's lips. Whatever. Now I have to be more cautious around them, he grumbled. Not at all, Takahashi shook his head, completely negating the concerns of his master. I don't think the people he has brought with him carry any threats whatsoever, he informed and subtly chuckled at the faces his master made after hearing his answer. Should I bring them in now? Might as well, Minato whispered. Oh, dear Kami! When Minato first heard that Xiaticus was bringing some company from the old man, he had expected the man to bring some fairly powerful devils from his peerage. He could have brought the most intelligent person of his peerage, as they likely would have solidified him getting a nice profit from the meeting, but no, Xiaticus didn't bring anyone like that. Instead, the man brought his 2 daughters. One was 5 years old, the same as his son, while the other was none other than the Lucifer of Underworld herself. I'm sorry, Minato, the distinct voice of Xiaticus brought him out of his surprise. I didn't want to bring them here, but they are both incredibly stubborn and really wanted to meet that handsome owner of Whirlwind Company. The red-haired devil laughed at the end of his statement, as a thin layer of blush spread over Minato's face. Oh, Minato rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Xiaticus nodded. Let me introduce you to them. With that said, he glanced at his daughters, who immediately stopped fighting each other as soon they saw their father turn his head. Rias, the youngest girl, perked up at her mention. Sayla, come and introduce yourselves. At the climax of his guest's words, Minato found himself encircled by 2 almost indistinguishable girls, the only dissimilarity, aside from the obvious age difference, being their hair and eyes. While the younger one had beautiful red hair like his wife, the older daughter, on the other hand, adorned herself with equally fascinating brown hair, a trait he thought she had obtained from her mother's side. Hello, a warm smile blossomed on his lips as he greeted the 2 sisters, making sure they would feel no threat coming from him. Sayla, the older one, was the first to return his gesture. Hello, Mr. Minato. Surprising the blonde man yet again, the girl chirped in response. I'm the biggest fan of the okonomiyaki that your restaurants prepare. It's simply a masterpiece. Her big bluish-green eyes grew wide in glee when the man smiled at her. Also, where is your son? I really want to meet him. He looks so cute in the commercials. She added. Dad, can we get more ramen? Like a fangirl who had lost herself in the madness, Sayla began to mimic the phrases of Naruto. Minato was at a loss for words. He didn't know what to say because the entire situation surrounding him felt like a bizarre dream. Otherwise, why would the ruler of the underworld behave like this in front of him? From the stories he had heard about the past Lucifers, she too was supposed to be cruel and intolerant. But here she was, mimicking the childish phrases of his son as if they were the most interesting thing in the whole world. His eyes twitched and lips quivered when he was cut short by an equally enthusiastic Rias. Yeah. A gleeful Rias joined her sister in her absurd recreation. Naruto is cool and all, but I like you more in the commercials, especially when you are with Ms. Kushina. You two look so amazing together. Little hearts twinkled in her enormous eyes as she glanced at the husband of her idol. Ms. Kushina is amazing. She is like a goddess from the Oturan anime series. The adoration that the girl held for Kushina made Minato a little bit uneasy. Yeah, that she is. Rias nodded her little head at the blonde man. You are very lucky to have her as your wife, Mr. Minato. I wish she was my mother too. Now that managed to get a reaction out of Minato. Now he patted the head of the sad girl. Don't be sad. I'm sure your mother is just as amazing as Kushina. His words brought back the smile on her smile. Of course she is. She's my mother. She is the best, but still. Rias pouted, her small lips quivering at the mere thought of meeting her idol. Bless. Sayla scoffed at the absurdity of her sister. Seriously, what was wrong with her? Here they were standing in front of the most famous businessman of Kuo, and all her sister could think of was Kushina. She's not that amazing. She bit her lips when Minato gave her an incredulous look. I mean, she is beautiful, but remember, she also hit Naruto. I don't like it. The brown-haired Lucifer shook her head, no doubt disappointed with how the woman handles her son. But that's all as a joke. No. I don't like it when someone hurts that adorable child. He is so precious. Must protect. A sweat drop formed on the back of Minato's head. He paused and looked at Xiaticus for help. Of course, the sweat drop only got bigger when he saw Xiaticus adoring a small picture of Naruto. They all are crazy for my little child. I need to keep them away from him. was the first thought came to his mind as soon as it started working again after the initial shock. Takahashi, who was watching everything from the sides, chuckled at the scene in front of him. It was truly amusing, to say the least. Minato-sama finally gets to see how different devils can be. Another chuckle left his mouth when he saw little Rias nudge his master's elbow, only to kiss him on the cheeks when he bent down to listen to her query. Alright, now, shall we begin the meeting? After admiring the room to its fullest, Zeoticus finally turned his attention back to his new friend. In response, Minato rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Can we please wait for a moment longer? Amaterasu-sama wants to be a part of this meeting too. At the mention of Amaterasu, everyone went silent. Zeoticus, who was enjoying everything till now, went rigid when he heard the name of the infamous goddess. Out of all the people Minato could have invited, why did he invite that woman? The red-haired devil grimaced at the idea of meeting that woman in person. Amaterasu? Sayla asked Minato. Yes, she told me that she wanted to meet devils again. Now that made the female Lucifer a little cautious and tense up at the current situation. Amaterasu was someone who had hardly ever shown any interest in any other faction except for her own. So, to be on her watch list was something most from other factions wanted to avoid. That woman was cruel, outright heartless sometimes. Sayla had seen how that woman had obliterated an army of fallen angels without a tinge of remorse on her face. Why? A simple question escaped her mouth. Minato answered the question with a small smile. I'm not entirely sure myself, he spoke, and by the sound of his voice, Sayla could tell he was telling the truth, which only served to grow her concern. I see, she whispered, rubbing her temples gently with her fingers. Minato's words were cut short when the door of the office opened with a loud slam. The sound was so intense that Rias jumped in surprise. Amaterasu Sayla finally glanced at the open door and smiled when she saw the beautiful goddess standing in the entrance with a cold look on her face. The aura she was emanating was intense, and felt as if she wanted to make them aware of the fact that she owned the whole area. Sayla, the princess of the sun, whispered, her voice as apathetic as her face. What are you doing here? The question put everyone immediately on edge. I just wanted to meet Mr. Minato. Oh. And Naruto. The temperature in the room suddenly dropped below freezing as soon as Sayla spoke Naruto's name. What do you want with Naruto? Was the first thing that left the mouth of the angry goddess. Sayla would have answered the question had not someone interrupted her again. Amaterasu, don't leave me behind like that. Sayla's eyes went as wide as saucers when they took notice of another goddess in the room. Tsukuyami? She immediately recognized the new guest. After all, who didn't know about the most beautiful woman in the world? Devils, fallen angels, and even angels were mesmerized with her beauty. Who? Oh, Sayla, fancy seeing you outside the underworld. The pure apathy conveyed by her voice was enough to put the Lucifer on edge. She knew she was stronger than both, but she would struggle minimizing the potential damage to the surrounding area should this meeting turn hostile. Added to the fact that this was supposed to be a business meeting, she didn't want to take any chances and start something. There was also not wanting to leave a bad impression on Mr. Minato and possibly hurt little Naruto's father, but she wasn't going to state that out loud. Minato and Zeoticus both wanted to defuse the situation, they really did. But they also were far too intimidated by the females to make even a sound. Tap. Tap. The sound of faint footsteps made Minato's stomach do a few flips. The person coming carried a Horatian mark on them. He dearly hoped that it was Naruto. He was the best bet to defuse this situation. Whatever it was, his son just had that effect on people. One look at the person who entered the room and Minato realized one thing. Destiny truly was a total bitch. There she was, his lovely wife, standing at the entrance to his office, looking at all the female occupants as if they were some criminals and she was the judge, jury, and executioner. He shouldn't have let laziness take over and scheduled the meeting in one of his restaurants. But no, he just had to be a lazy shit on the wrong day and invite the devils to the office in his home, a place where his wife and the two Shinto goddesses had a high probability of meeting. The upcoming clusterfuck was on him, and he was ready to accept his fate. There was no point in denying it. Whenever even one of the two goddesses were in the same room as his wife, the conversation always shifted towards Naruto. He didn't know why, he didn't know how, but it did. And it always ended with him walking out of the room, scared shitless of the three women. You two, without any warning, Kushina grabbed the arms of the two goddesses and dragged them away from the entrance. Why are you here? Have you both finally decided to leave Naruto alone? Didn't I tell you two not to get involved with his life? The red-haired woman bombarded the goddesses with her questions. Amaterasu was the first to come out of the shock. Kaosama's black eyes glared at the source of her misery. What was that for? She asked, rubbing her swollen cheek lightly where Kushina had pinched her, while her sister looked back and forth between the two women. Don't call me that. But you are my future mother, and now another cheek was sacrificed to the angry habanero. No, I'm not. Naruto won't be marrying either of you floozies. Amaterasu glared at the woman and unleashed some of her power in order to subdue her anger. Yes, you are. Naruto is my not again. She screamed, finally on the verge of losing herself to the anger. Kushina scoffed and waved off the surge of power as if it was nothing. Naruto is my son and that's all. He belongs to me, only me. Begone thought. Kushina. Okay, Minato too, but mostly me. You didn't carry him for 9 months. She pointed at her husband. Amaterasu was about to argue further, but her sister stopped her from doing so. People are looking at you. The sun goddess looked around and was surprised to see everyone looking at her. She had forgotten about the devils. What? She asked them. Do you people find this interesting? She seethed in fury. Oh, for my mother's sake. What did I do now? Stop trying to scare my husband's business partners. By now, Amaterasu was having a mental breakdown, while Sayla was, on the inside, enjoying it to the fullest. To see the sun goddess being manhandled by a human was a truly humorous sight, one that she would pay to see again and again. The other 2 devils, however, were standing there, with an expression that could best be described as what the fuck. Zeoticus had seen some really interesting situations over his many years of life, but this threw his definition of weird outside the window. I'm not scaring them. I'm just warning them. Which is scary, be nice while doing it. Tsukuyami couldn't handle it anymore. With a hand on her abdomen, she let out a joyous laugh, one that echoed in the room for a very long time. Yes, scold her more, Kushina-san, ow wow. Her laugh ceased as cold fingers pinched her cheek tightly between their grasp. What are you on about? Not like you are any better. I have seen you trying to win over Naruto with your cheap tactics of treats and gifts. He's not that shallow. The piercing stare that accompanied those words was enough to cause Tsukuyami to start sweating bullets. Why, you see. It isn't like that. They are just gifts. Nothing more. And I'm not a woman. Kushina snarked right back at the embarrassed goddess. Explains the flat chest. The deafening silence in the room was enough to let Sayla know she fucked up. She thought she hadn't been loud enough to be heard. Guess she thought wrong. What did you say, young lady? Kushina asked in an all too sweet tone that made everyone, even Amaterasu, shiver in fear, not that she would ever admit to it. Sayla, for the 3rd time in her life, felt true fear. The wrath of a mother was nothing to look down upon, she knew that firsthand. The feelings were only accentuated by the way that Kushina's hair started floating and splitting themselves into 9 different strands, each flailing around menacingly. She started sweating profusely. There was no other word that could describe what she was seeing, a demon. Said demon also somehow had a projection of a flaming kitsune behind her. The eyes of both the demon and the projection burnt in unholy unison, staring down upon her as if condemning her to a lifetime in heaven. She never thought she would say this, but she would have much rather preferred another great war occur than to face down this monstrosity. Just as she was about to pass out, a voice she only knew too well cut through the tension like a chainsaw through the paper. Hey Dad, do you know where the toothpaste is? Naruto said as he entered the room, yawning, wearing a set of the most adorable fox-themed pajamas. The room went even more silent than before. The eyes of all the females were glued onto the sleepy form of Naruto. Minato gulped. And Naruto, he whispered, eyeing every female with sharp eyes. The little boy perked up a little. I asked if you knew where my toothpaste is? Naruto. Naruto didn't even acknowledge the shout and casually moved to the right in order to avoid a flying Amaterasu. Naruto. This time to the left, so that Tsukuyami could meet her sister on the ground. Naru-chan. Still half asleep, Naruto sat down and yawned cutely as he rubbed off the sleep from his eyes while being completely unaware of the fact that a gleeful Kushina flew right above his head and crashed into the bodies of Amaterasu and Tsukuyami. Dad, he grumbled and raised his arms in order to reach out to Minato. Pick me up. I'm tired. Sure. Minato wasted no time in picking up his dear child, and soon, the room was filled with cute little sounds of snoring as Naruto rested his face on the shoulders of his father. Shall we begin the meeting now? Minato smiled at Zeoticus. I'm sorry for all of this. No problem. Papa, pick me up. I want to sleep like him. Arias. Innocent violet eyes basked in the warmth from the scene in front of them. No matter how great his home in Ko was, that jungle of concrete could never beat this Shangri-La of greenery. Papa, this place is awesome as always. Naruto squealed, making cute faces that only a child could muster. Minato smiled at his son and patted him on the head. Of course it is, Naruto. Your Aunt Yasaka has kept it protected just for you, he muttered while very well remembering to quote the beautiful fox lady. After all, she had demanded him to speak about her to his son. He suspected her intentions were similar to Amaterasu and Tsukuyami, but he hoped it wasn't. Yasaka Oba-chan? The 5-year-old boy's face beamed at the mention of his favorite aunt. Out of all the women in his life, his beautiful Oba-chan was the most mature one. She was the epitome of class and compassion. In short, he liked her. She is the best. That she is. So why are we here, Papa? The blond man smiled. To train, of course. He spoke jovially. I don't want to train. It's boring and I get tired easily. Naruto argued and raised his hand in defeat. Naruto. He tried pouting instead. Please, I promise I'll study seals with you in the evening. No. You need to train, Naruto. This world is a very dangerous place. We need to be very careful and stay active with our training in order to live without worrying. If possible, Naruto's pout deepened. Ah, please, Papa, he pleaded with the most innocent face he could muster. After all, if there was one thing that his father adored the most, it was his innocence. He loved it when he made those cute little faces. Minato's will began to crumble. No. You need to train. He immediately argued back with a stern look on his face, but one could see that his mind had begun to waver already. Now it was just a matter of time before he would give up on the argument. Humph, fine. The yellow flash sighed in relief when his son agreed to train. He was just a hair's breadth away from losing yet another argument with Naruto, but fortunately, his son couldn't see past his stern look. Now, he ruffled his son's hair. No need to get angry, Naruto. It's all for your benefit. Don't you want to protect your family from bad people? Naruto wasted no time in answering that question. Of course I do. I'll protect you all. Don't worry about that, Papa. It's just that I don't want to get sweaty, you know. He shook his head, a feeling of defeat all over his face. Well, this sweat will pay off in the future. It better pay off, otherwise I'll tell Mama that you have been hiding her instant ramen for a year now. An ice-cold shiver went up Minato's spine. I'm not doing anything like that, Naruto. He tried to bluff his way out. Oh really? Naruto smirked at his father, and for the first time in his life, Minato was scared of his son's cute face. Takagi says otherwise? Takahashi? The blond man questioned. Was his innocent-looking old man betraying him from the shadows? No, he couldn't believe that. There was no way Takahashi would betray him like that. He was his most loyal subordinate. I don't believe you, Naruto. The 5-year-old blinked at his father's statement. Why not? His head tilted to his side in confusion. Because he is very loyal to me. Oh. Naruto's lips formed a cute little O as he stared at his father's face. Well, he is loyal to me too. Takagi is my most loyal subordinate, he claimed, arrogance replacing the innocence on his face for a short period of time. It was rare for him to get an upper hand on his dad, and now that he had it, he was for sure going to enjoy it while it lasts. Really? Yup. He pledged his loyalty to me. Minato frowned, no doubt a little peeved by the fact that his subordinate would do something like that. Takahashi was supposed to protect his secrets. Well, aren't you clever for a 5-year-old? At that, Naruto puffed out his chest in pride. Of course I am. Naruto Namikaze is awesome. He yelled and began to jump high in the air in excitement. My brilliant son! Minato wasted no time and grabbed his son in his arms and began to walk towards the nearest river. Papa, you are the best. Naruto was confused. Taking a few steps with his small feet, he couldn't help but wonder what the hell he got himself into. From what he could remember, his father told him that they were visiting Kyoto for a short session of physical training and chakra manipulation, but when his eyes moved around to take a look at his surroundings, he knew that his father had conveniently omitted the other reason for their visit. There was no way he had brought him here to just train with him. What the hell, Papa? Why are we? His small mouth was abruptly silenced by the big hands of his father. SSHHH Naruto. Don't say stupid things here. We are in Kyoto right now. Violet eyes diminished behind the tiny eyelids as Naruto groaned at the response he had just received from his father. Oh, come on, Papa. We're supposed to be training, right? He asked and couldn't stop his lips from forming a scowl when his father nodded his head. Then what are we doing here? You know, I don't like these hybrid humans, right? He spoke and made sure to whisper out the last part, otherwise only Okami knew what could happen with them. Minato bonked his son on the head. Naruto, they are not hybrid humans. He whispered and looked around to make sure no one heard him. They are yokai, a faction with a very good reputation in this world. I guess, but they're still weird. His 5-year-old tongue became stuck in his mouth when he observed an individual that could be depicted as a hybrid of human and crow passed by on his right. A shudder ran down his spine. See that lady? She was weird, Papa. He fumbled, his body still shivering due to the distress that he had felt at the mere sight of that woman. She was not scary. The shivering stopped. Of course you would say that. She was thick, after all. A shroud of red covered Minato's cheeks. Naruto, he shouted, his face now as red as his wife's hair. Why did Fuck it. Who taught you that word? The distress of the man only increased when his son gave him an all-knowing look. Takahashiji did. He told me that you use this word to appreciate women that you like and told me that I should use it too for the women that I'll like in the future. Minato's embarrassment rose to such a high level that it could have made heaven reachable for a second. His son, his little cute son, was already being tainted by the evils of this world. Naruto, he kneeled down in front of the little boy, who was no doubt confused as to why his dad was acting so strangely all of a sudden. That word is not good, disrespectful to women, and I don't use it. Takahashiji must have been joking with you because that word is very offensive and usually. Liar, Naruto gently bonked his father on the head, earning a little groan from the man. Bad papa. Don't lie. I've heard you call mama thick. Humph. But your mother is a different story, Naruto. She is my wife and I can use it in front of her without any worries. Still skeptical of his dad, Naruto decided to test the certainty of the statement himself. Hey, he called out to a random lady who was standing across the street. She was just like the other lady who he had seen a while ago and was perfect to test his father's innocence. My papa wanted me to tell you he thinks you're thick. The boy frowned upon the silence that followed his statement. What happened? He thought as he looked around him to decipher the reason for the silence. Minato, on the other hand, was in complete turmoil. Fuck, he whispered under his breath. He was screwed, no matter what the woman's next words were. If she reacted poorly, it would end up attracting quite a crowd, possibly making Minato want to die of shame, and Kushina would also find out eventually. On the other hand, if she reacted positively and tried to flirt with him, Naruto was bound to spill the beans to Kushina. It was a terrible lose-lose scenario he found himself in. He really didn't know which scenario was worse. Either would result in a slow and painful death at the hands of his lovely wife. Minato wondered where his son learned to use his innocent nature to manipulate people. Seeing the woman blush, Minato knew that a quick escape would be his only option for a continued assured existence from his wife. Hastily grabbing Naruto by the collar and lifting him up, he vanished in a yellow flash, leaving behind a blushing and slightly confused yokai. The man, whoever he is, was quite handsome, so much so that she was sure that he could turn a straight man gay and a lesbian straight just by smiling at them. Arriving outside of Yasaka's castle, the guards were startled at first, but quickly relaxed after seeing who it was. Naruto was quite famous among the guards of Yasaka, more than Minato was, but that was mostly because a majority of the guards were females and Kushina was also well known around the castle and hence no one stopped the duo from entering. They did come to Kyoto to train, and what better place to train than the yokai's training grounds? The fact that Yasaka was quite partial to the blonde child and allowing them to use her personal training grounds certainly made things easier for the father and son. Inside the castle, the guards all knew that Yasaka was aware of Minato's and Naruto's presence in the castle. She always knew whenever the child visited, but they still informed her of their arrival, more out of duty rather than to actually inform her. Giving a slight nod to her attendant who had been the one to bring the news to her, she wrapped up whatever work she could in the time it would take the two to reach her office. She was absolutely loath to keeping Naruto waiting. She moved the papers from her table and arranged them in neat piles to be filed later. She didn't have to wait long as she soon heard a knock. She stood up to go answer it, but was soon stopped when the door suddenly opened and a small blonde missile knocked into her with a shout of Yasaka Oba-chan. Making her stagger a bit, a big feat given her strength, followed shortly by an exasperated Naruto from behind the door, and a sheepish-looking Minato entered her office. Yasaka stopped the man before he could start apologizing for Naruto suddenly barging in her office without permission. She was well aware of just how long his apologies could go on for, and had no plans to entertain them when her time could be better spent with Naruto, pampering him to the best of her abilities. Oba-chan, how are you? I missed you so much. It's been so long since I last saw you. How is work? Are the weird people giving you trouble? Many more questions left his mouth at a rapid pace, barely giving her time to even listen to them all. Chuckling slightly, she picked up the boy using one of her tails, earning a slight yelp from the blonde, followed by him getting lost in the sheer softness of the second tail that came up to tickle his face, hugging the tip, tickling his cheek to his chest and nuzzling his face against the part that stuck out. Soft as always. Wow, what does she use to keep them so soft? Bah, they were questions that could be answered later when he wasn't busy snuggling his face against her tail. This is why his Oba-chan was the best. She let him have fun with these amazing tails. He shamelessly ignored his hypocrisy in finding other yokais weird but loving her tails. Seeing this, Yasaka couldn't help but let an amused smile appear on her lips. As she glanced towards Minato, her smile only increased seeing the exasperation in the man's eyes. She was a faction leader known throughout the pantheons, one whom Naruto considered family, but image was still a thing and he dreaded the day when Naruto would meet an important figure who wasn't half as lenient towards others, child or otherwise, and it was bound to happen considering the fact that only a very, and he meant very, small minority of the supernatural world was a part of the lenient group. Please calm down, his innocence is what sets him apart from everyone else. Let him enjoy this while he can. You know how cruel this world can be. I know you are aware no faction is guiltless when it comes to committing atrocities against the innocent, even the biblical heaven. I know Yasaka-san, but I can't help but worry. How long before his innocence becomes naivety? How long before it gets taken advantage of? In this world, simply having power isn't enough. A strong heart is just as important, if not more so. If Naruto lacks either trait, I can't always be there for him. I want him to be able to take on the world with his head held high, unafraid of any challenge that comes his way. Even then, he is my son. No matter how strong he becomes, I'll always worry about him. Minato did have a point. It was natural for him to worry. Naruto was his only child, and not to mention both he and Kushina were overprotective parents. Naruto was still sitting on one tail, rubbing his face against another, oblivious to the world. She looked down on Naruto's face, and what she saw washed away any form of annoyance from the slight tickle she felt on her tail. Yasaka cherished that smile, and made her hesitate for a moment, reluctant to move him so he could start his training. Preparing for the disappointed face and the pout that was sure to come, she turned to Minato. I believe you came here to get him started on chakra training. Come, I'll lead you to the training area. She slowly started trying to free her tail from the child's clutch. She could have easily yanked it out, but she didn't have the heart to do that to Naruto. Realizing she would have to take a more direct approach, she adopted a light, admonishing tone. Naruto, you came here to train, didn't you? If you don't let my tails go, how will you train? But I don't want to. Seeing the pleading look in his eyes and seeing that Yasaka's defenses were beginning to crumble, Minato decided to intervene. Naruto, what did I say about training? Sigh that it is important to train if I want to protect the people close to me, I know. But please Papa, just a few more minutes. Please E. We will be back soon, you can cuddle with your aunt then. Let's go, the sooner we start, the sooner you can play with Yasaka. Seeing that his dad was unwilling to budge, Naruto let go of the tail he was cuddling. The reluctance on his face challenged Minato's resolve on training and jumped off her other tail. He began to walk so dejectedly and slowly out of her office. Minato nearly cancelled the training to allow his son more time with the kitsune, but held firm to his convictions. Please follow me, Minato-san, I'll take you to the grounds. Festival grounds. Gion Matsuri was one of the biggest festivals the people of Kyoto celebrated annually during the warm month of July. The huge festival was committed to the cleansing of unwanted entities and was carried out in the holy shrine of Yasaka. During the whole month, the city of Kyoto was decorated like a newly wedded bride, and yokai from all over the world visited in order to take part in giant parades and spend quality time with their families. Traditionally, it was an event that one could never forget, but unfortunately, our little Naruto hated being in a place filled with so many people, especially when the crowd consisted solely of odd-looking humans, hybrids, and supernatural beings. Look where you are going, sir! Naruto yelled at a brown-haired man who flew past him without uttering a single apology for disturbing his walk. Seriously, does anyone here have any manners? He mumbled, completely forgetting that he, himself, was infamous for breaking rules and pranking people. Minato glanced at his son and smiled. Now, he placed a hand on his head and ruffled the bright blonde hair. There's no reason to be so upset about these things, Naruto. We are here to enjoy the festival, remember? Naruto scoffed, discarding his father's question with a gentle sway of his head. I know, but I don't like festivals. I want Yasaka Oba-chan. His whining attracted a lot of attention, but no one dared to disturb the father and son duo, as most knew who they were and of their relationship with their leader. But Yasaka is getting ready to deliver her speech. She is the main attraction of this festival, and her speech is very important for this event. The child refused to heed any attention to the explanation of his father. For him, the only thing that was going in his mind was the soft tails of his Oba-chan. Those delicate cushions of fur were something to remember for eternity, and Naruto wasn't going to let anything get in his way from cuddling them. Fine, his words brought an expression of relief on Minato's face. I'll wait until she finishes her speech. Minato was about to ask Naruto what he meant by that, but couldn't, as the crowd around them abruptly erupted in cheers when the leader of the yokai faction finally appeared on stage. Amazing, the former Hokage couldn't help but find himself in awe at the spectacle in front of him. The mixture of claps and cheers brought a wave of nostalgia with them, and soon Minato felt as if he was sent back in time to recall the remembrances of his beautiful village and its people. Papa. The ripples of reminiscences settled down when he heard his son's voice. It was sweet and cheerful, yet sharp enough to pierce through the walls of his mind. Huh? Blue eyes flickered in confusion, but soon found the reason. Yes, Naruto? Minato asked, his eyes still filled with tears at the sudden onslaught of memories. Am you blacked out for a bit? Oh, a sheepish expression soon deluged Minato's face as he tried to form a proper explanation for his recent lapse. I was thinking about something. Oh, Naruto smiled at his father. If you're lonely because Mama's not here, then don't worry, I'm here. I'll protect you from bad people. Just like that, the memories of the past left Minato's mind as he began to laugh at Naruto's childish statement. Oh, my little Naruto, he gently cupped his small cheeks. I'm not feeling lonely. With you by my side, I can never be lonely. The smile on his face only got bigger when his son began to squirm in his arm because of the embarrassment. Whatever Naruto wanted to say was left unsaid when a group of beautiful women surrounded them. You are such a great father, mister. One of the women, who had very unique features and a gorgeous body, whispered in a warm voice. Her intentions were remarkably obvious on her narrow face. Thank you? Not wanting to come off as rude, Minato replied to the woman and smiled at her while completely missing the smile that blossomed on her face at his small gesture of appreciation. If you don't mind, may I ask who you are? The lady inquired, this time with a slight jiggle to her huge and hips. Seeing that his papa was having a hard time getting rid of the woman, Naruto decided to interfere in the matter. After all, there was no way he was going to let another woman steal his papa from his mama. His mama and papa were his ideal couple and he refused to let anyone ruin their bond. Excuse me, lady, he began and was glad to see that the woman finally looked away from his father's face. It was getting rather creepy. He's already married and has a beautiful wife whom he loves very much. If you are looking for a man to marry, then you can meet Takahashi-ji or come see me when I turn 18. Okay? He exclaimed but immediately groaned when a pin-drop silence followed his words again. Huh? What is wrong now? Naruto looked around him and gulped when he saw the aghast expressions everyone had on their faces. Minato wasn't doing any better. No matter how much he loves his son, he couldn't deny the fact that his son is extremely talented in bringing trouble to his life. Not even a minute ago, he was going gaga over his son for being so cute, and now the same son had done something so stupid that he couldn't even describe it in words. A lump formed in his throat when the woman started to laugh all of a sudden. Ha ha ha, melodious giggles enveloped the whole area with their warmth, as the lady slowly began to step towards the stunned child, her huge still jiggling like they were earlier. Finally, stopping in front of the man, the woman slowly lifted her right hand and cupped Naruto's cheek within her palm. You are such a cute boy, she paused and glanced at Minato. Minato understood what she meant by that look. Naruto. His name is Naruto. She nodded her head before looking back at the boy again, who still was surprised by the fact that the lady wasn't doing anything bad to him. Naruto. It's a very nice name, don't you think? She asked her fellow females, who immediately whispered a small yes in unison. While the women were busy talking to each other, Naruto decided to apologize for his actions. He wasn't being smart at that time, but then again, he's still a child. I'm sorry for the words. His apology was stopped by the female. No need to apologize for that, Naruto. You were just trying to make sure your father remains safe, and I appreciate and adore that. Your love for your father and mother is very pure, I can see that, and that's why you don't need to apologize for anything. With that said, the lady began to walk away from the duo. Hey! What is your name, miss? The woman looked over her shoulder and smiled cutely. Gabriel. Minato's whole body went rigid and his face turned white. Gee, Gabriel. Papa, why is everyone coming here? Why can't we continue playing the festival games and eating the food? Naruto whined plaintively with a pouting face from beside Minato. Forgetting the recent incident, Minato chuckled and ruffled Naruto's hair, causing him to pout even deeper before answering. You see, son, this festival is known as the Festival of Yasaka Shrine for a reason. It wouldn't make sense for them to come here but not listen to Yasaka's speech, would it? Yeah, I suppose it wouldn't, Naruto answered after thinking about it for a while. The pair stood in silence for a while longer, observing the crowd entering the courtyard from a small ledge underneath the massive sakura tree in the middle of the area. The courtyard was a very large, rectangular area which split off into 4 different sections on each side. Directly to the north was the Grand Palace, a foreboding building of traditional Japanese design with many different rooms including the armory, homes to officials and retainers, and guest/meeting rooms for any foreign dignitaries. It also contains the main portal to Takamigara, although it is very rarely used nowadays. Very few mortals are ever invited to the heavenly realm, and the ones that are usually taken directly there by the gods. However, if one were to look at it right now, nobody could call it foreboding at all, quite the contrary in fact. There were many lanterns swinging from the curved edges of the roofs, and numerous good luck and well-wishing posters adorned the normally blank walls of the palace. To the west were the royal gardens, a place of serenity and agricultural miracles, as well as being the second largest sector in the palace, only behind the Grand Palace itself. The gardens were not only there for decoration, they also served to grow some of the rarest fruits and vegetables known to all of the supernatural kind. It was rumored that some of the plants there, if harvested and processed correctly, had the ability to twist reality itself and grant the user any wish, no matter how outrageous it was. Of course, when the rumor got out, the place was constantly the target of thieves, thus the inner sanctum was completely closed off to the public. Anyone who wished to enter the publicly available area were to be thoroughly searched and scanned. To the east were the training grounds. There wasn't anything particularly special about these, except for a few runes which automatically cleaned and tidied the area up after any usage. "Look! There's Oba-chan!" Naruto suddenly exclaimed, pointing at the podium set up in front of the main palace. Indeed, standing in front of the main palace was none other than the person the festival was named after, Yasaka, the ruler of the yokai, and Kyoto. She was looking as majestic as ever, her blonde hair carefully combed, and her 9 tails proudly on display. The golden kimono she wore seemed to glow under the pristine moonlight, and the lanterns somehow dimmed when she walked up to the podium. Her posture screamed confidence and benevolence. Her mere appearance drew the attention of everyone gathered. "Welcome all, to the Gion Matsuri festival," she began in a regal voice that echoed throughout the courtyard. "I am Yasaka, and I am glad that you could all make it tonight to join us in this celebration. Undoubtedly, you are all tired from our food and exhibits, so I will keep this brief." The audience was entirely captivated by her speech, including Minato. "Wow, she sure knows how to keep an audience's attention," Minato thought, impressed at her ability. As a Hokage, he knew how difficult it could be to speak to such a large crowd, much less keep their attention constantly on him. The fact that Yasaka was achieving such a feat seemingly effortlessly was truly a testament to how talented she was in speaking to the public. "Yasaka sure is amazing, isn't she, Naruto?" Minato spoke, her eyes still glued upon Yasaka's brilliant form. Hearing no response from his son, he looked down to his right expecting to see Naruto sleeping or something similar. What he didn't expect was to see the grass that they were standing on. Feeling the panic rising from within him, he quickly looked around trying to find his wayward son. A sudden yelp brought him out of his reverie. As he looked towards the source of the yelp, his face went chalk white. He had found Naruto, but not in the way he had expected. A few minutes ago, just after the speech began. Burrowing and irritated, Naruto thought as Yasaka started speaking. Why did we have to leave the food and game stalls just to hear Oba-chan talk? We could have taken some food and games here while listening to her, but no. We just have to leave the fun stuff behind. Naruto started feeling restless about what was going on. His childish mind determined that listening to this was far too boring when there were so many other things he could be doing, like eating dango and ramen from the stands. While confined to the courtyard, Naruto took this opportunity to gaze around. He searched for anything that would relieve him of his boredom. His eyes then aligned upon 9 flowing tails on the podium. Oba-chan must be bored as well, speaking to all these people. I know I am just waiting around and listening, so let's go have some fun, he screamed in his mind excitedly as his eyes shone with innocent glee. Looking towards his father, he noticed that Minato seemed to be transfixed upon whatever Yasaka was saying. Taking the chance, he slipped away from his father and made his way through the crowds, and started stealthily approaching Yasaka from along the west side of the courtyard, which just so happened to be the most heavily guarded side, as it was the entrance to the royal gardens. Naruto somehow made it past every single member of Yasaka's elite guard without being detected. Even the captain of the guard, Yamato, didn't notice Naruto's presence when he was right beside him. Heh. That was easy, Naruto thought with happiness as he slipped past Yamato, secretly slipping a fart bomb into his pocket. Naruto really didn't like the captain of the guard, he was too strict and uptight. On numerous occasions, he would deliberately try to get Naruto to stop whatever he was doing and sometimes, even tried to arrest him on technicalities. That wasn't to say that he did his job badly, it was quite the opposite. He was actually the most efficient and diligent guard in the palace, and has been for many years. He just seemed to be annoyed by Naruto's very presence, and seemed to have it out for him. As they say, you never mess with an Uzumaki and expect to get away with it. Now Naruto's eyes lit up in pure delight as he was behind Yasaka and her glorious tails. Time to have some fun. Letting out a shriek of pure childish delight, he jumped directly into Yasaka's tails, making the owner of said tails yelp in a way rather unbecoming of a leader. Yasaka was mortified. She was doing so well with the speech that she had prepared over the last fortnight, and was delivering it to perfection, when she felt a sudden intrusion upon her tails. Letting out a very girly squeal, she whirled around with her hands full of foxfire, her face the very definition of rage, prepared to obliterate whoever dared to interrupt the speech she so carefully prepared, and more importantly, touch her tails. She would allow nobody to touch her tails. Well, nobody except for one person. The fire in her hands instantly died down, and her face morphed from pure rage to one of fond exasperation as she saw the only person she would allow to fondle her tails playing around in the sea of fur. Naruto had his eyes closed in pure bliss as he gently caressed the golden furry tails of Yasaka. Luckily, he didn't see the angry visage of Yasaka earlier, nor did he sense the intensity of her flames. Instead, he was busy drowning himself in the sea of fluffiness that was unparalleled by anything in the world. Upon observing the peaceful look of Naruto, Yasaka truly couldn't remain angry at him anymore. He just looked so cute with that face, and she just wanted to hug him and keep him for herself forever. The fact that the stroking felt incredible, and the arousal she felt from his actions totally didn't play a part in her decision whatsoever. However, a sudden shout broke her out from her thoughts, and what she saw actually brought back some of the rage she felt earlier. Her captain of the guard, Yamato, was shouting angrily at a teary-eyed Naruto, who was trying to hide himself in her tails. She could feel the distress emanating from her adorable little nephew and was prepared to put Yamato in his place when the moon suddenly glowed and a beam burst forth, blinding everyone. Minato's panic quickly transformed into anger as he witnessed what was going on. Sure, Naruto needed some stern talking to after the stunt he pulled, but going so far as to call his son a useless cretin was going too far. He had experience with such people during his tenure as Hokage, and he knew that Yamato's anger was partially due to his pride being absolutely crushed by Naruto. He had basically, without any effort, succeeded in slipping by all the elite guards, getting close to Yasaka and surprising her. It was Yamato's job to prevent such occurrences from happening, and the fact that a small child could do something like this must have infuriated him. Deep down, he was immensely amused and proud of Naruto for evading all of Yasaka's elite guards, especially since none of them were weak at all. If they were still in the elemental nations, he would rate the guards as on the same level as his mid-ranking A and B, with the captain being a definite high-ranking one. The fact that his son was able to slip by them all without any one of them noticing whatsoever truly made him feel joy. Just as he was about to go up there himself to reprimand the captain, he was blinded by a bright blue beam. Oh no, he thought as his vision returned, earlier panic coming back with vengeance, because he only knew of one person who could cause the moon to shine so brightly. His fears were proven correct when the imposing form of Tsukiyomi appeared from the light, with a murderous look on her face. Well, at least Amaterasu isn't here, he thought with some relief. Boom! He began cursing to every single god out there when an explosion of pure sunfire erupted from beside Tsukiyomi. Both Tsukiyomi and Amaterasu were glaring daggers at Yamato, who had already wet his pants out of fear, with pure murder glowing in their rage-filled eyes. Even Yasaka was looking scared of the two strongest and arguably most bloodthirsty goddesses of their pantheon. How dare you insult my Danachan like that, pest? Tsukuyomi spoke in a whisper that permeated through the courtyard, which went eerily still and silent, the gathered guests stricken with fear at what was going on. You a lowly nobody, dare call my beloved a useless cretin? Amaterasu murmured out through her teeth, flames forming around her feet and arching upwards. Danachan? Beloved? The entirety of the guests thought as one with horror as their minds struggled to reboot from the bombshell that was dropped on him. They did not know whether to feel jealous of the fact that someone had the heart of the two most beautiful Shinto goddesses, or pity because they had the attention of the two most bloodthirsty goddesses. That's not even counting the fact that he was just a child, yet he had not one, but two goddesses chasing after him. And you! Amaterasu exclaimed, pointing at a bewildered Yasaka. Why is he playing with your tails? Yasaka felt her fear vanish, immediately replaced with irritation. Naruto wasn't Amaterasu's, and she would make sure that the goddess knew it. Is that a problem, Amaterasu-sama? Yasaka spoke in a formal tone towards the angry goddess. Why are you even asking that? Amaterasu almost screamed at Yasaka, her power starting to fluctuate wildly. He is mine, and mine alone. Tsukuyomi let out a pointed cough before Amaterasu could finish that sentence. I mean OURS. He is our beloved, Amaterasu said with finality, as she pointed towards Tsukuyomi and herself. Yasaka felt the irritation getting more poignant by the second. Opening up her fan, which was hidden in her sleeve, she placed it so that the fan was covering her lower face, leaving only her narrowed eyes visible from above it. Pardon me, Amaterasu, but it seems that you are misunderstanding something, Yasaka said, dropping the sama suffix from Amaterasu's name. Naruto is still only a child, he is far too young for any of you two. The gathered crowd was now surreptitiously filtering out from the southern gate, escaping for their lives. They could feel the tension rising between the three gorgeous women, and they wanted no part in it. They had all seen or heard of what the two goddesses could do when provoked, and they didn't want their ire to be directed onto them. Are you saying that we are old? Tsukuyomi whispered again, her voice starting to take on the dual tone she used when she was about to lash out. You have the gall to say that, when all three of us know that you want him for yourself? You yourself are also too old for him, Amaterasu said without emotion, her face completely blank. I do not want him for myself. Yasaka immediately protested, losing her composure and waving her fan around. I just want the best for him. That's all. Despite what she proclaimed, deep down she knew what Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi said was true. She did want Naruto, but just couldn't bring herself to admit it. She started feeling the anger from earlier, return in full force amplified 10 times. And how do you know what's the best for him? Tsukuyomi said, her dual voice becoming more prominent. Because actually he talks to me, unlike you old hags. Yasaka shouted out, her presence flaring wildly around her, and her eyes started glowing with power. What did you call us, you bitch? Amaterasu and Tsukuyumi spoke in unison, their combined power causing the earth to start shaking and the air began to feel extremely heavy. Just before things could get out of hand, a male's voice cut through the air. Rather than trying to kill each other and possibly erase Japan in the process, why don't you just both ask my son who he prefers? I'm so sorry, Naruto Minato thought with despair as he said the words that basically condemned his son to eternal torment. But the hardest choices require the strongest wills. Of course, you are right, Minato-dano. Yes. How could we forget about Dana-chan? If that's what my future father-in-law requests, then I shall do it. As the four turned as one towards the last known location of Naruto, they only saw an imprint of where he used to be. Geez, things got crazy back there, Naruto thought tiredly as he wandered the streets, drinking from a bottle of milk. I'd better hide, in case they tried to find me. No, when they try to find me. Looking around to the left and right, his eyes aligned upon a particular woman with brown hair with a symbol on her kimono. He recognized that symbol as one of the Gremory clan, so he quickly made his way towards her. Sayla was still stunned about what happened earlier. She had been present during Yasaka's speech and bore witness to the chaos during that speech. She saw poor Yamato passing out with his pants soiled, and she felt the sheer power from the trio on stage. Sayla wanted no part of being caught in the middle of that situation, and decided to get away as soon as possible. She felt a tug on her hand and she looked down to see the very child that the trio was fighting looking up at her with those adorable eyes of his. Excuse me, miss, you work for Lord Gremory, right? Could you take me to someplace safe from my aunties? Naruto spoke in a small tone, putting on puppy dog eyes just for good measure. Sayla felt her heart crumble as she looked at Naruto and without a second word, she picked him up and walked elsewhere. Somewhere away from festival. The area where the lady brought Naruto was a strange place. While the rest of Kyoto was basking and dazzling in the bright lights of the festival, this place was decorated with nothing but dim lights and darkness. If he had to be honest, Naruto would say that this place was a little intimidating. With a dark forest on one side and an equally dark street on the other, the place looked rather ghastly. Hello? The sudden change in the stillness by the voice made Naruto bolt away from the lady. He didn't want to, but the action was spontaneous and he had no control over it. Slowly, he lifted his head and was surprised to discover a small smile on the beautiful face of the woman. As far as he knew, devils weren't supposed to be so happy. Why is she smiling at me? Disregarding the fact that he was currently alone with the same devil, he decided to get closer to her again. Are you okay? She asked him, barely noticing the smile that his lips formed at her question. Yes, I'm fine. What about you, MS? The woman perked up, her face lighting up with thousands of emotions as she introduced herself to the boy. Sayla. I'm Sayla Gremory. The Lucifer, she paused abruptly. Assistant. Yes, assistant. I'm Lucifer's assistant. Her sudden exclamation caused Naruto to raise an eyebrow in surprise. Oh, how strange! Overcoming the momentary shock, Naruto blinked at her, indicating that he was a little perplexed by her words. Sayla immediately noticed the skepticism in his voice and began to sweat a little. Did the boy know about her origins? She couldn't believe it. After all, he was still a child, and the most he could know about her was that she was related to Gremory House. What do you mean by strange? She asked. I mean, you are your own assistant. His words prompted Sayla to look away from him. The amount of embarrassment was just too much for her to handle. It must be cool, right? To be your boss and assistant at the same time. His giggles were a testimony of the fact that he was very much enjoying the show of her shame. How could he see through my disguise? Sayla thought to herself, all while still looking away from the boy so that she wouldn't have to show her red face to him. I even used my best disguise magic. It's embarrassing, Sayla. It's embarrassing. A small child was able to see through your best disguise. Pathetic. She berated herself. Why? Naruto's shout caused her to look at him again, and needless to say that she was surprised to be greeted by a soft and caring look on his face. No need to be sad, you know. The only reason I was able to tell who you are was because I could remember the smell of your shampoo from that day very well. With a sheepish look on his face, Naruto explained everything to the female. All the embarrassment left her face as soon as she heard the explanation of the boy. So that means my magical disguise isn't useless? No. It's perfect. Really? She squealed in glee, and on cue, the facade around her body vaporized into thin air, leaving behind what could be termed as one of the most desirable bodies of the supernatural world. There was not a single man in this world who could find her beauty undeserving. Naruto was no exception either. Though he didn't give much interest to the body, the face of Sayla was still able to earn his undivided attention. Why? Because she was absolutely beautiful. Blue-greenish eyes surrounded with luscious brown hair gave her face a pleasant touch, a thing that was missing in the other woman that he had met in his life, except for Tsukumi. The moon goddess had the most beautiful face, after all. Why, yeah, he finally answered the woman. Ah, you look so cute right now. Did you know how badly I wanted to meet you in person, Naruto? The last time I came to your house, you didn't even look at me and immediately went to your father's arms. Humph, I felt so bad that day. To be there yet unable to meet you made me very unhappy. I wanted to snatch you away from your father's arms, but with your mother there I feared what she may have done to me if I tried that. With a slight hurt to her voice, Sayla began to narrate her sorrows to the boy. But that didn't make me lose hope. Instead, I began to think of many other different ways of meeting you. I tried everything, from attending your restaurant's grand openings, to joining my dad at the meetings he had with your father, but sadly, you never showed up to any of the events. For the next half an hour, Sayla continued to speak utter gibberish in front of Naruto without giving a damn about the world around her, and Naruto, like a curious and nice little child he was, listened to everything that the woman had to say about her misadventures. He would occasionally yawn due to the fatigue caused by the intense training and the chaos that he had inadvertently caused in the city. Now, do you understand how much I adore you? After finishing the tale of her sorrows, Sayla Gremory finally glanced at the source of her affection, only to find him searching for something in his small bag. Curious, she inclined her head slightly to take a hasty peek at the inside of the bag. What are you searching, Naruto? She asked the boy. Naruto stopped his search and turned around to look at her with the most heartbroken face in the world, while the tears in his eyes only increased the impact of that face. And milk, my milk. Someone stole my milk from my bag. Whimpers after whimpers left his mouth as he tried not to cry in front of the powerful lady. Hearing his hurtful words, Sayla immediately went into her kind and caring mode. A mode that was exclusive to her sister and Naruto. Milk? She asked, and when the boy nodded his head slowly, she couldn't help but feel his misery inside her heart. Okay, but why are you crying for milk, Naruto? If you want, I can bring you some from a store nearby. The boy vehemently shook his head. No. That wasn't regular milk. It is not available in stores. It was my mama's milk. Whatever Sayla had in her mind went blank as soon as she heard what the boy had just spoken. Mama's milk? She gulped as a huge explosion of red color erupted on her cheeks. Does his mother still feed him her milk? She couldn't help but think about the extraordinary situation. If what Naruto just said was true, then she was sure that his mother was still feeding him her milk. Oh dear Satan, mustering some much-needed courage, she slowly looked at the sad boy. Naruto, what do you mean by mama's milk? Mama's milk means mama's milk. It's delicious, so delicious that even Papa drinks it every day. Papa Dash? She was about to ask him what he meant, but did not when her mind immediately flashed a lewd picture of Minato suckling on the modest of Kushina, that too with Naruto on his side, suckling on the other. Fuck was all she could say at that moment. Fuck? An utterly devastated Naruto repeated the word between his whimpers. Don't use naughty language in front of me. For the uncountable time that day, Sayla was surprised by Naruto's ability to speak unexpected things in completely unexpected ways. Even now, when he was drowning in the sadness of losing his precious bottle of milk, he somehow managed to sound serious while chastising her for using crass language. I'm sorry, Naruto, but it's just that I was a little surprised by what you told me, she replied, sounding as apologetic as possible. The little boy nodded his head. It's okay. His voice was now devoid of the earlier cheerfulness, and Sayla immediately noticed that. Is there anything I can do to cheer you up? She wanted him happy again, no matter what the cost. Yes. A sliver of hope appeared on her face. Give me mama's milk. And just like that the hope disappeared and was replaced with an expression of utter embarrassment. And milk now? How the hell she was supposed to give him his mama's milk? Gulping to herself, she looked down at her but immediately shook off the idea. It was bizarre in every possible way. But no, she wasn't going to do it. Milk sniff. Cracks began to appear on her iron wall of courage. Why would someone steal my milk? The wall began to crumble under the burden of his unbearable cries. I think I should take. Her heart finally gave in when she saw him wipe the tears out of his face. I can give you the milk. She didn't know why, but she just blurted out that sentence without any pause, and the result was instantaneous. Naruto, who was about to leave her alone, stopped in his stride and gasped at her. What are you doing? The little boy asked when he saw the lady unbutton her top in a very awkward fashion. Hey! What are you doing? His anxiety reached its peak and his eyes almost bulged out when the piece of cloth that was previously covering her huge was put aside on the dusty pathway, leaving a pair of heavenly exposed for the world to see. Sayla didn't look at the boy and just brought him close to her with a little pull. Hey! Drink as much as you want. But... The boy was silenced as strings of pure white milk flew high in the air and soon, All anyone could hear was the sound of heavy breathing and moaning. Time skip, 5 years later. If there was a place that Uzumaki Kushina absolutely despised, it was the women's meeting room. Filled with nothing but arrogance and the smell of heavy perfumes, it was a place she would not recommend to anyone, especially normal women. The room nor the meeting had nothing to do with women. Instead, it was a medium for rich bitches to banter and flaunt their wealth. When she had first gone to that meeting, she had been very hopeful and optimistic about the whole thing. For her, it was a reminder that women of this world also had some sort of unity and power, but all her hopes went to the gutter as soon as she entered the room. "I don't want to go there again," Kushina whispered in what could be termed as the most innocent voice she could muster, at least in front of the deity standing right next to her. Amaterasu sighed. "You have no other options, Ka Kushina-sama," she answered, making sure to not use that word in front of this woman ever again. The beating and insults of that day were still fresh in her mind, and she was sure that the woman wouldn't think twice before doing it again. "Humph. I know you are doing this to take revenge for that day." A sliver of a smile appeared on Amaterasu's face but vanished before Kushina could notice it. "Of course not, Ka Kushina-sama." The disappointment was evident on her face. For a goddess like her, dismissing a simple word from her vocabulary shouldn't be difficult. Yet here she stood, the goddess of the sun, in front of the most fearsome woman she's ever met, repeating the same word over and over again. Normally, Kushina would have been annoyed at the goddess for using that word in front of her, but today, instead of annoyance, she saw an opportunity hidden beneath it. "It's okay. You can call me Ka-sama or whatever you want to call me. I don't mind." Just her words were enough to put Amaterasu on alert. In a flash, the deity flickered away from Kushina, all while clasping her cheeks in her palms. "What are you planning, Kushina-sama?" Fear was distinct in Amaterasu's voice, and the look that Kushina gave her only increased it further. The woman was going to try something stupid on her again, the goddess was sure of that. Otherwise, there was no reason for her to be so gentle and calm with her, even going as far as to allow her, the infamous godly bitch as Kushina usually calls her, to refer to her as Ka-sama. "Seriously?" Amaterasu wasted no time. "Yes. You always pull pranks on me, Kushina Ka-se." "Don't call me Kushina." Paused as she realized just what she was about to do. No, she thought to herself. That's not how to lure someone into a trap. If she really wanted to save herself from that torture, then she needed to be more polite with this godly bitch. Kushina Ka-sama, her lips forged a fakest smile as she continued to speak. "Call me Ka-sama." Okay. An awkward silence engulfed the room as both the ladies continued to stare at each other with their sharp, beautiful eyes. Ka-sama. Amaterasu finally broke the silence. "Yes. Now that's better." Fist clenched, Kushina still managed to keep that smile on her face. "You may not realize, but I really love being called Ka-sama by you. It brings me so much joy when you call me with that title." Tears began to fill her eyes as she marched towards the most annoying person in the whole world. "What do you want?" And just like that, Kushina's little march of joy came to an abrupt sad end. What? What do you mean by that?" she asked, and immediately cursed herself for stuttering in front of this woman. "I said, what do you want, Kushina-sama? Didn't I just tell you to call me Kal?" Amaterasu smirked. "You might be able to fool Tsukuyami with these fake tears, but you can't fool me, Kushina-sama. I know all of your petty tricks." She was right, she actually knew all of Kushina's tricks. The woman was notorious for pranking people for no reason at all, with her being the most frequent victims of her prank. Kushina had tried every prank on her, from drawing a blonde mustache on her face to stripping her nude in front of an aghast Naruto. The woman has done it all, much to Amaterasu's annoyance. "Well, at least Naruto was able to see me naked because of her." Okay, she might have liked a few of Kushina's pranks. With shame, they also brought some benefits, and Amaterasu was a person who always liked benefits, especially if the benefits involved her being naked in front of him and sending him into a dazed state. "Ah man, you are such a cruel person, Amaterasu. See, that's why I don't want you to marry my Naruto," Kushina whined, drawing a look of interest from the sun goddess. What she was saying actually made sense for the first time in Amaterasu's opinion. "I want him to marry a girl who, instead of stopping him from doing pranks, would rather participate in them with him. Take Tsukuyami for an example." "Go on," Amaterasu told the woman, looking quite serious about the whole conversation now. Kushina paused and then smirked. She had the woman in grasp hold now. Now she would tame this godly bitch. "Tsukuyami always assists me in my pranks, even going as far as seducing Naruto in front of that red-haired girl Rias." That was so funny, and the look that the small girl had on her face the whole time only made it funnier. The seed was planted. Kushina rejoiced as she observed the look of rage on the face of Amaterasu. She was furious, and that's what she wanted. Now the only thing she needed to do was, "I hope instead of a serious and mean woman like you, Tsukuyami becomes my daughter-in-law." And just like that, Kushina dropped the ultimate bomb. No. No, Amaterasu shook her head. It was not going to happen, not at least under her watch. If anyone is going to marry Naruto, then it's going to be her. She'll be his wife, she'll be his first kiss, she'll be his first time, and she'll be the only one to have children with him. He was her, and hers only. You can't do that. The smirk on Kushina's face broadened. Oh, I can, I surely can. What do you want? Tell me. Money? Fame? Bigger? I'll give you anything. Just ask me. Whatever Kushina was planning to say went to the gutter as soon as she heard the suggestion involving her getting bigger. Who do you think I'm, bitch? I'm not a bimbo. I'm perfectly fine with what I have right now. Minato loves them, and that's what matters in the end. She yelled in anger. Then what do you want? Simple. I don't want to go to this stupid meeting. Those yokai women can fuck. Language, Kushina-sama. Kushina scoffed at the warning. Fine, but you understand what I'm trying to say, right? The sun goddess sighed. Yes, but... Please. No. Please, dear Amaterasu, I'll do anything. Amaterasu paused, a mischievous glint prancing within her eyes. Anything? She recited, the glint still there. Kushina didn't know what to say. From what she could discern, Amaterasu was scheming something horrible, and if her past experiences were anything to go by, that idea probably included her son as well. What should I do now? She asked herself and began to think about a getaway plan. I'm waiting for your answer, Kasama. Don't call fuck, Kushina screamed at no one in particular. Why are you doing this to me, Amaterasu-chan? A small smile made its way to her lips, but the lady in front refused to fall for her motherly warmth. Bitch, she couldn't help but murmur under her tongue. Okay, fine, tell me, what do you want? She finally yelled out, and instantly cursed herself when she saw that devious smile on Amaterasu's face. He. Tears formed within Kushina's eyes as she began to utter apologies for the crime she had just committed. It was an evil that would cost her son a day full of pain and agony. Sorry, Naruto, I'm really sorry. Oh, come on, Oturin, you don't have to be so pathetic in front of this girl. An utterly annoyed Rias whined as she glared at the huge screen in front of her. What the heaven was wrong with this boy? Here, she's cheering for him to get more powerful, but the boy is being nothing but a hopeless idiot. You are better than this. I know you are. Her eyes never left the face of the boy, which was not decorated with minor bruises and swollen eyes. If I get a chance, I'll erase. Rias Naruto, who was patiently sitting beside his friend, raised his hand and gently placed it on her head, giving it light pats to alleviate her outrage. I told you we shouldn't watch this show today because whenever we do, you get angry as soon as someone hurts Oturin. His complaints fell on deaf ears as the girl continued to glare daggers at that screen. After a whole minute of muttering curses and profanities, the 13-year-old girl finally looked at her friend and pouted. Oturin is no fun. He always lets that girl do whatever she wants to do with him. Also, where is Atana when he needs her the most? Usually, she is always there to stalk him, but whenever a problem arises, she is never there to help him. The points that she raised actually made Naruto a little interested in the talk. Initially, he had no plans to indulge in a conversation regarding anime, but now that his friend had raised such valid points, he couldn't help but talk about the widely popular show. You know, I think you are right this time, Rias. Oturin is an idiot. He shouldn't allow anyone to hurt him like that. If he continues to live with that viewpoint, sooner or later, people will begin to take advantage of him. His words earned him a surprised look from his friend, who was staring at him like he was some sort of a sage, blinking only when necessary. You think so? Naruto nodded his head at the question. Of course. Also, Atana is a character that I can neither hate nor love. She is just that cute. A dead expression enveloped Ria's face when she realized what her friend was trying to say. You mean she has huge, right? I get it, Naruto. You are a boy and all, but seriously, are you going to let her slide just because she has huge tits? Oh, come on. I expected more from you. You shouldn't be judging girls on the size of their... Each word that she spoke made Naruto recoil in embarrassment a little bit. It was as if she was slapping him repeatedly with her words, and by God, they hurt very bad. Girls with small also have a nice personality too, you know. She finished her sermon with a slight glance at her own chest and was disgruntled to see nothing but a vast meadow of flatness. Naruto saw that look, and soon, everything began to click inside his mind. Ha 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 ha. His boisterous laughs managed to bring Rias out of her thoughts. Oh, Rias, he murmured as he gently began to caress the cheeks of his friend, an action that caught Rias by surprise. After all, it was rare for him to be so warm towards her. Usually, he would just tease her, and she would do the same. So times like these were special to her. You don't have to worry about anything. You are very beautiful just as you are. There is no need to change anything. Explosions of red flared on Ria's cheeks as she continued to listen to the sweet words of her friend. For once, his words were making her feel all warm on the inside. Just like how it happens in those mangas, she giggled to herself mentally. I envy the devil guy who is going to marry you in the future, you know. And just like that, the warm feeling left her body, leaving behind a heart yearning for that heat again. Not only he will take you away from me, but he'll also get to have you beside him for eternity, Naruto whispered. Why yeah? You know, sometimes I can't help but feel jealous of you guys. Rias blinked at the strange statement. What was there to make him feel jealous of her? As far as she knew, he had everything one could wish for in his life. You guys get to live for centuries or even eons with your families, especially with the person who you love, but us humans, we don't have that blessing. Sooner or later, just like every other human, I'll disappear from this world. As he spoke those words, Rias couldn't help but notice a flicker of grief crawling out of that bright smile of his. But hey, don't you dare forget about me, okay? At that moment, nothing mattered to Rias. That smile that Naruto had on his face didn't fool her this time, as she was able to see everything she wanted. Anxiety, concern, but most importantly, fear. In that sliver of a second, she learned one of the most important aspects of his life. He was mortal. Let's read some fanfiction, shall we? She smiled at him, refusing to talk about his inevitable demise further. There was no reason for her to do that, as it brought nothing but pain and grief for them. Naruto didn't need to be told twice. In a flick of his fingers, he unlocked his iPad and opened one of their most favorite websites. FFnet. Both of them giggled as Naruto logged into his account and began to search for the newest stories that were added to the Oturan category yesterday. Romance between Oturan and Atane? He asked Rias. You know. Arukas and Oturan? PFFF, as if I'll ever read something that involves that big language, Rias. Rias sighed. Leave it to Naruto to remind her how vile she has become in the past few years. Maybe it was because she was hitting her teenage years, or maybe it was because of the influence of Kushina-sama, she didn't know. Although her heart told her that the lady was solely responsible for this change, she refused to entertain that notion. Kushina-sama was perfect. There was nothing wrong with her. Okay, language police, she taunted him, but much to her dismay, Naruto ignored her without even recognizing it. Abandonment stories? What the fuck? A smug smile emerged on the beautiful red lips of Rias. Language, Naruto. The smugness only increased when the boy blushed at her. But yeah, what the heaven? Who writes these types of things? She was fast in showing her disappointment as well. Oh no, it involves his mother running away from the town and leaving him behind. Seriously, who writes these stories? How in the world they can believe that his mother will ever leave him alone? She fucking died for him, for go Satan's sake. Naruto growled, anger flooding within his voice. What was wrong with people? Changing something in the story with plausible reason was one thing, but changing it entirely to suit your taste was just preposterous. How could someone even think that Oturan's parents would have left him alone if they had survived that catastrophe? They were his parents, for God's sake. Naruto didn't know about others, but according to his experience, if someone was ready to sacrifice himself for their son, then they were the best parents in the whole world, period. Ria smiled when she saw the anger on her friend's face. It was cute according to her, as she knew just how much Naruto loved his parents. They were his life, especially his mother. So it was natural for him to get annoyed at these types of stories where they make those wonderful parents the villain of the tale. Now, Naruto. No need to get so angry at something that isn't real, you know. It's unnecessary and only wastes our time. She whispered and rested her head on his shoulder so that she could read the stories from a nice angle. Naruto huffed but ultimately calmed down when he felt her head on his shoulder. Fine, but remember it's S. Stupid, yeah, I know. Now move on to the next story. I don't want to read some garbage involving abandonment. Next is the boy immediately stopped as flares of red covered his whole face. What is wrong with these people? He thought to himself as he continued to read the summary of the story. It was blasphemous, and was something that shouldn't even exist in his world. I should skip it fast, don't want dash. Kinky mother and son, having fun. With a predatory smile on her lips, Ria shifted her gaze at Naruto and began to laugh hysterically. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Rias didn't answer. She just continued to laugh at him. I'm not that type of person. I don't enjoy these kinds of STO. Cold, slender fingers made contact with his lips and locked them silent. Oh, I'm sure that you don't. You love your mother, right? She asked him. Naruto wasted no time in answering. Of course. I love. Words perished in his mouth as another wave of red color swashed with his cheeks. Oh, the realization finally dawned on him. I see what you did there, you genius devil. He glared at her, but the girl did not even waver. Okay, she brought her fingers close to her lips and made an action as if she was zipping them tight. I won't tease you again about your redhead fetish. She murmured but couldn't hold her giggles and lost herself in fits of laughter again. Naruto would have yelled at her again for being stupid and mean, but stopped when a devious comeback emerged in his mind out of nowhere. For someone who herself has red hair, you are quite brave to sit beside me and taunt me for having a slight preference for red hair females, you know. His words silenced the girl immediately. What if I lose control and kiss you right here, Rias? He glanced at her, and was surprised to see her in a state of shock. Why, you would never. Never is an overstatement, Rias. His smile made the back of her neck tingle for some reason. I'm a very unpredictable boy, Rias. What is stopping me from kissing you right here? Rias gulped because he was absolutely right. There was nothing that was going to stop him if he ever decides to do what he just told her. But that would lead to people assuming that you love me and then you will have to marry me, Naruto. So, I don't think Ryu can do that. She blinked at the amazing response she had just murmured out. Even she didn't know where that came from, but in the end, she was satisfied with the work. Blue eyes blinked at her. Naruto was at a loss for words, that too against Rias. How? He murmured under his breath. No, he refused to be defeated by Rias in an argument. How the taunting smile returned to his face. What if I want to marry you, Rias? You have everything a guy wants in his wife. Rias' mind went blank as soon as she heard his comeback. And marry? The heaven was this boy saying? Did he even know what his words meant to her? Blood began to rush to her cheeks as she began to see flashes of countless images that contained beautiful memories of her and him, sitting together in their small house in front of a beach, fans running at full speed, messing their hair while she held a cute baby in her arms. But you are not a devil. You are a human, she whispered, barely holding back the tears of joy that dared to fall from her eyes. Oh, a thoughtful look engulfed his face as Rias yet again countered his teasing with solid truth. You are right, but blue eyes sparkled with joy as he suddenly remembered some wise words of his father. Words that had always made his mother blush, no matter how angry she had been. So what if I'm a human, Rias? You can't spend forever with me then, Dumbo. Naruto discarded her argument with a wiggle of his finger. I hear you're wrong, Rias. He whispered and unexpectedly rested his head on her head, rendering her silent. In your lifetime, you'll only be able to share thousands of moments of love with me, but I on the other hand will live on forever in your memories. The two remained in that position for a while, enjoying each other's company, before Rias spoke up, moving her head away from under Naruto's and turning to face him. Since when did you get so wise, mister? You were never this wise before, she asked, pointing an accusing finger at him. The Naruto I know couldn't spout this stuff. Ha! That is where you are wrong. I have always been this wise, you are just too dumb to realize it, Naruto declared in a regal manner as he made a rather funny pose. He didn't realize that he had fallen into Rias' trap. Hey! Naruto cried out as Rias swiped his iPad from his lap and started browsing through his history. Give that back. No, Rias playfully shot back as she dodged another lunge from Naruto. I will find exactly where you got those quotes from. Naruto could only watch in dismay as Rias flew up to the ceiling, holding his precious iPad. He once more called hacks on Rias' ability to fly like that. It wasn't fair, damn it. He pointedly ignored the fact that his parents could do far more hacks than Rias could. Let's see, Rias muttered to herself as she scrolled through his history. YouTube app download, funny fox memes, and aha! 101 wise quotes. She said that last part out loud, which elicited a giggle from her as she heard Naruto groan in despair. She landed back down beside him, ruffling his hair while he slumped over and cried anime tears. After a while, he got back up looking like someone had killed his metaphorical puppy. He was going to ask Rias a question, but she beat him to it. Why use Reddit though? That place doesn't really offer much useful information, Rias asked curiously. Naruto shrugged. It was the first result on the screen, he answered plainly. Besides, he continued, what else would I use? A rook? Huya answers? Those aren't good either. What do you mean? Rias cried out indignantly. A rook is fine. No, it is not. Yes, it is. The two continued to bicker about which search engine was the best for many hours more. Lilith, Underworld. The work of a Lucifer wasn't difficult, to be honest, at least that's what Sayla, the current Lucifer of the Underworld, believed. At first, when she became Lucifer, she was very nervous as to what might be awaiting her on the other side of her office's door, but as time went on, she realized that there wasn't much to the position at all. Sure, it had many perks and influence, but in the end, they meant nothing unless something regarding other factions were involved. I miss the old days, Grafia, Sayla whispered as she glanced at her queen who was currently organizing the documents on her table. At the mention of her name, Grafia stopped her work and decided to acknowledge the proclamation of her master, no matter how odd it sounded to her. You are wrong, master. Sayla. Don't call me master, it makes me feel odd, Grafia. The white-haired queen sighed. As you wish, master. As I was saying, your statement is foolish, Sayla. Her words destroyed whatever good was left in the day for Sayla. The cold words of her best friend could be very cruel sometimes, and Sayla had learned that very well. Old days were filled with nothing but war. So how could you even think of them being good? It is absurd and outrageous. In answer, Sayla just stuck her tongue out at her queen. Whatever you say, Ice Queen, she pouted at her. I don't have time to argue with you today. I have a lot of other things to worry about. Grafia blinked at her master. Worry? Sayla? What happened, Sayla? She couldn't help but ask her. Rias. Suspicion began to churn inside her mind. Rias? Sayla nodded her head. Yes, she left the Gremory mansion saying that she is going to visit me in Lilith, but 5 hours have passed, and she still hasn't entered the city. I'm getting a little worried about her safety now. Grafia remained silent for a while, thinking of possible places where the Gremory heiress could go to pass her time. Do you want me to go and check out for her favorite places? She asked, and was pleasantly surprised to see Sayla refuse her suggestion. No need. I have already searched everywhere and still found no clue about her whereabouts. Ko City? Duh, of course, Grafia. No, I meant Namake's mansion. Most of the time, Lady Rias is always caught hanging here. Grafia knew she had struck the right string when a wave of red washed over the face of her master. Sayla glared at her queen. She knew what she was doing, and she didn't like that. You are teasing me, right, Grafia? Her voice carried a threat with itself, but unfortunately, it had no effect on the Ice Queen whatsoever. Instead, it only led to her smile getting even bigger. Of course not, Sayla. What is there for me to tease you? You haven't done anything ridiculous there, or have you? No, I haven't. Also, call me Master, you meanie queenie. Of course, Master. Grafia bowed in front of Sayla to apologize for her behavior. It was wrong, she knew that, but then again, it was thrilling at the same time. Anyways, Master, what would you prefer? Coffee or milk? The smile returned again, and so did the smugness. That's it. Sayla immediately stood up from her table and turned around so that she wouldn't have to see that smug face of her queen. You are so terrible, Grafia. I told you it was a mistake, but here you are, reminding me again and again for that silly blunder. Head down in shame, Sayla muttered those words with so much sadness that for once, even Grafia was feeling a little bad for her. After all, ever since that embarrassing incident with Naruto, there hasn't been a day when Sayla hadn't regretted her actions. She was foolish to even think that Naruto was asking for milk, and her foolishness led to her stripping naked and practically forcing that cute little child to drink her milk. If only Yasaka had been a little late, then I could have erased his memory. Sayla murmured under her breath, all while cursing that voluptuous vixen for appearing at the exact same time when she was about to erase Naruto's memory. I'm sorry, Master. I won't do that again. Okay, Sayla whispered. Also, you can leave now. I need to cry over my mistakes again. Grafia didn't argue. As you wish, she said, and was about to leave the room, but remembered something very important. Coffee or milk, Master? Leave. Money? Check. Clean clothes? Check. Perfume? Check. Mouth freshener for kisses? Check. Naruto paused and glanced at his assistant, Takahashi. Oi, you perv, can't you think about something else for longer than a second? He grumbled, sighing immediately after when the older man laughed in response. No, Takashi answered blatantly, showing no sign of remorse for his train of thought. I say what I deem as truth, Master Naruto. His laughs became louder when the boy began to utter profanities at him. It was so Naruto of him. Still, I'm just going to a supermarket, for God's sake, pervert. And the one with I'm going there isn't someone you want to annoy, you know. Takashi remained silent before another suggestive smile appeared on his lips. Amaterasu-sama? He asked and nodded his head when his young master confirmed his suspicion. Then it's even easier. You just have to smile at her, and she'll be all yours. His suggestion earned him a deadpan look from his master, something he was very accustomed to. After all, it was very common for him to suggest these amazing ideas. Though it was another thing that Naruto never agreed to try any of them for some reason. Sure. Brown eyes sparkled in excitement. So are you going to kiss her this time? He couldn't help but voice out his question. Naruto recoiled away from his servant instantly and gulped when he saw that killer smile on Takahashi's face. What is wrong with you, old man? He yelled, sweating lightly as his mind processed the words he had just heard from the mouth of his perverted companion. Kiss Amaterasu. He blushed a little. Though worded wrongly, the idea was still incredible, because who didn't want to be with her? She was the embodiment of the perfect wife. Takahashi saw the blush. Oh, young master likes the idea, doesn't he? His smile became brighter when the boy looked away from him, grumbling something under his breath. I don't, old man. It's just she is, you know, she is so beautiful? Naruto nodded his head. She is beautiful, yep, that was the word he was looking for. Beautiful, not hot, beautiful, he sighed to himself. He was slowly turning into a younger Takahashi, and he knew he had to stop before it became too late. By the way, master, how did this arrangement come to be? Hearing the question, Naruto slowly turned his gaze at him and blinked. Amaterasu barged into my room, told me to be ready by 5, and then left. He answered in a way that he thought was the easiest to explain since the rest of the incident was something he didn't want to talk about in front of Takahashi. Was Lady Rias okay with that? Naruto grimaced at the mention of his friend. He began to rub his cheek awkwardly. Now how was he supposed to answer that? The whole thing happened so fast that he was unable to understand what was going on. I don't think so. He finally spoke because he was certain that Rias didn't like the way Amaterasu interrupted their playtime. Even he didn't like it but couldn't show his disappointment because it was Amaterasu, a person who he adored to no end. She was one of the few people he would never leave alone, not even after his death. He would become a ghost if he had to in order to remain beside her. I see. Takahashi's words brought Naruto out of his stupor. Then why didn't you say no to Amaterasu-sama? I'm sure she wouldn't mind. A small smile materialized on Naruto's face as he recalled the incident once again. I could have but didn't. Takahashi stood perplexed at his master. What? He asked, confusion evident in his voice. I said I could have said no but didn't, old man, Naruto repeated. Why? Because then it would have made her sad and I don't like seeing her sad. She looks beautiful when she is smiling. His smile turned into a soft giggle when an old memory of Amaterasu flashed before his eyes. An image where a smiling Amaterasu was dancing carelessly in the rain, giving no thoughts to the people that were looking at her with wide eyes. Her smile is very rare and I don't want to be the reason for its disappearance. So yeah, I can't say no to her. Even if she asks you to violate her? Yo, wait, come on Takashi-ji. You never let me enjoy my daydreams. If you continue on like this then I'm sure I'll become a pervert like you. Takashi chortled at his young master. And is there a problem with that? Naruto stared at him as if he had just said the most obvious thing in the world. Seriously, he was amazed by the fact that his father was able to handle this man for 10 years, something that made Naruto respect his father a little more. I don't want to be a pervert. I want to be charming and kind, like my father. That you already are, master. You are a lady killer just like your father. Lady killer just like Minato, at Takahashi? The temperature of the room dropped drastically as soon a distinct and soul-chilling voice entered their ears. Keikushina-sama, the old bones of the man began to rattle inside his body, some out of fear and some because they were already broken by the woman behind him. His words died a premature death in his mouth when the lady placed a hand on his shoulder, her grip so tight that for a second Takahashi was sure that one more had joined the party of broken bones. Tell me, old man. A shudder ran down his spine and then traveled back to his mind and chilled it. I didn't mean to say the grip on his shoulder tightened and so did the muscles inside his throat. Leave now. Oh, of course, in an instant, Takashi untangled himself from her grip and sprinted towards the entrance, not daring to look back at the red-haired monster. You know, you don't have to scare him like that every time. I fear he will get a heart attack because of you one day, Mom. Kushina scoffed at her son. As if that's gonna happen. Takahashi is a stubborn old man, Naruto. He won't die before seeing your wedding. It's his biggest dream, she argued, shaking her head in disappointment. Naruto could only blink in confusion. My wedding? He asked, surprised by the revelation. Of course. The old man wants to see you tie the knot. Only then would he decide whether to die or not. He loves me so much. The boy squealed, his emotions gushing out of his voice like an untamed river. While her son fawned over that old man's ridiculous statement, Kushina was staring at him with worry-filled eyes. Why wouldn't she? Her son was going on a shopping spree with that obscene bitch of a goddess, and she was sure Amaterasu would try something new to win his heart this time. Mom? Her eyes drifted to the other side of the room so that Naruto couldn't see the tension within them. What? She bit her tongue in frustration as she noticed that she was stuttering for no reason at all. Are you okay? You're looking a little nervous for some reason. Of course, Naruto would notice her feelings immediately. He was too good at it, or maybe she was very bad at hiding her emotions, but she refused to believe that. I'm fine, Naruto. Her eyes veered over to his face again. It's just that I'm a little scared. Naruto interrupted his mother's words with a gentle smile on his face, one that always managed to get a smile in return from her, and today was no different. In a matter of seconds, Kushina was smiling at him, the gray expression of anxiety no longer lingering on her beautiful face. You worry about nothing, Mom. Amaterasu would never do anything to harm me. She is a very gentle and compassionate lady. He would have spoken more about the personality of Amaterasu, but his mother decided to add her own 2 cents. Sure, and I'm a monster who eats small children for breakfast. Naruto flinched at the vicious and dry words of his mother. It was obvious to whom those words were targeted at, but he could do nothing about it. Angering his mom meant a day full of arguments and no food, only ramen. Whatever, so he did what he usually does to counter her arguments. He simply ignored the previous statement of his mother and just smiled at her. Kushina leaned over and began to stare at her son with a sharp gaze. Don't forget to keep a safe distance away from that woman, Naruto. Oh, okay. The boy gulped loudly when Kushina placed a hand on his shoulder and squeezed it lightly. Also, don't forget to bring the groceries that I've mentioned on that list in your pocket. Naruto slumped on the floor in defeat. Sure. Amaterasu was beautiful, no, an outright gorgeous lady, Naruto concluded after staring at her for a whole minute, something that he always ends up doing whenever he sees her. As she walked beside him, he couldn't help but smile due to the emotions that were bubbling inside him, urging him to compliment the lady for once. Compliment. Naruto blinked when an odd realization settled within his heart. In all these years, at least as far as he could remember, he had complimented every woman he had met except for her. He had never complimented her, not even once. Naruto. Shaking away the strange yet interesting thoughts, Naruto glanced at the lady and blinked when he noticed that she was staring at him for some reason. Yes? Are you okay? Amaterasu whispered out her question, cold black eyes heartily idling on the cute face of her future husband. Why, yes. He wasn't, Amaterasu concluded instantly as she saw a few flickers of embarrassment on his face. Telling lies was not his forte, at least not when she was standing in front of him. The boy was amusingly shy and attentive whenever he met her, and today was no different. Oh, really? She lowered herself a little so that she could see him in the eyes and smiled when a blast of red erupted on his face. Cute, she noted mentally, too afraid to speak out loud because she was certain that if she did then he wouldn't forget to tell about it to his mother, and then all hell would break loose. Amaterasu. Her lips formed a beautiful scowl as a very distinct and nasty jab of that woman rang inside her mind, making her twitch in annoyance and animosity. She was not a pedophile, not at all. Because if she was, then Naruto wouldn't have been standing here with her in this strange supermarket. Instead, he would be tied to a cough. She refused to entertain the scenario any further because of its vile nature. Amaterasu, the princess of sun as they called her, prided herself to be a gentle being when it came to Naruto and his shenanigans. Even the cold and ruthless side of her heart loved the boy to no end, going as far as making her do the unthinkable, like eradicating hundreds of devils and fallen angels that had dared to pursue the boy from the shadows. Now you look distracted, Amaterasu. A sliver of red spread across her cheeks as she took notice of the world around her, especially Naruto, who was looking at her with confusion in his eyes. Sorry. It's fine. Let's go shopping now. I have to get all this for my mom. Naruto stared at her for a while before he gently grasped her hand and began to drag her around the establishment, while occasionally asking for her help when he couldn't understand something about an item that his mother had mentioned in that long list. Aisle after aisle, Naruto and Amaterasu continued to roam aimlessly in the market, trying to find things that they needed to buy as fast as they could. Some things were in stock while some were not, but that did not stop them from shopping further, especially Amaterasu, who was enjoying every second of it. Days like this were a very rare occurrence for her, and she would be a fool not to take advantage of it. It was only the two of them, and nothing could ruin this day. They continued to shop for a few more moments before Naruto abruptly stopped in his tracks. Amaterasu was about to inquire about the reason for the sudden pause but failed to do so when the boy slowly shifted his eyes towards her and blinked. You know, the boy began to fiddle with the edges of his t-shirt, something that did not go unnoticed by Amaterasu. She was very well aware of the effects that she had on him, but today, he was behaving very oddly. She waited for him to continue. When he didn't, she decided to voice her thoughts. Is something the matter? You seem a bit tense, Naruto. The worry shining in her eyes did weird things to him. He didn't hate the feeling, not by a long shot, but it still made him even more nervous. Sure, he had praised the beauty of many other women around him, but something was different in her case. There was also the small pang of guilt for not having done this earlier, but he tried his best not to dwell on that particular thought. Amaterasu wasn't doing much better in the composure department. Just thoughts of him were enough to cause butterflies inside her. Being in his presence was a completely different feeling altogether. And now he was staring at her with those beautiful eyes of his that never failed to make her get lost in their never-ending depth. Unable to bear it any longer, she averted her gaze, a light dusting of pink on her cheeks and her eyes trying to look anywhere that wasn't his face. If anyone were to see them in their current state, it would make for a rather hilarious as well as a very sweet sight, and well, either of them qualified as average-looking, so it really wasn't a shocker when they were garnering quite a decent amount of attention. Some older couples even snickered among themselves and commented about young love. Out of the two, Amaterasu was the first to snap out of her embarrassed state, mentally chiding herself for having lost control of her emotions like that. She was here to win over his heart, not to fall further in love with him, if that was even possible, she mused idly. Noticing that he was still staring at her with the same nervous look, she decided to capitalize on the situation the best she could. My, that is quite the look you are giving me. See something you like? Her slightly flustered sing-song voice did an amazing job at breaking Naruto out of his thoughts, the tone of her voice sending a chill down his spine. Even in the teenager-like body she had transformed into, her beauty was otherworldly, fitting for a goddess, especially one of her stature. Yes, I mean no, wait, I mean yes. How can I not like it? You are very beautiful. His ramblings were cut short as soon as those genuinely delightful words escaped his mouth, sending him into a trance-like condition, while Amaterasu just kept staring at him, her eyes filled with surprise and affection. Stirring himself out of the initial shock, Naruto gulped loudly as he turned his head towards the beautiful goddess, trembling slightly when their eyes finally met with each other. I didn't mean to say that, he paused, berating himself internally as he realized his mistake. He was not supposed to say that after complimenting her. That was considered as rude if his father's words were to be believed. No, I meant to say that. Slowly, with a slight tilt to his head, he corrected himself. You are beautiful. It's just that I didn't. Whatever he wanted to say would never leave his mouth when the raven-haired goddess placed a finger on his lips, rendering him silent. Shush! The hair on his neck stood up as soon as her soft whisper reached his ears. Don't say anything now. Let me cherish this moment. The smile that Amaterasu gave him after uttering those words was stunning, just like her, and for a second it made him question his own sanity. Was he losing himself in her charm? He didn't know, but neither did he care. If that was true, then so be it. Naruto was ready to get lost in the enticement of her beauty if that meant he could be with her for a little while longer. As advised, Naruto remained silent while the woman continued to smile at herself in happiness, occasionally giggling loudly because her favorite person had finally acknowledged her beauty, something that he had refused to do in the past for some reason. She clasped her cheeks in her palms and giggled as his words rang inside her mind again. You are beautiful. Of course, she was, but that beauty meant nothing to her until he acknowledged it. It was only after hearing his words that she realized just how lucky her little sister was. After all, Tsukiyomi got to hear praises like this daily. Lost in her thoughts so much her mind completely failed to recall that she had yet to thank the blonde child for his praise. Wait, I didn't thank him, she thought to herself, panicking a little bit due to the fact he might never praise her again because of her short-sightedness. Her eyes moved towards his face and gleamed with happiness when she saw a tinge of red there. Naruto, she whispered, smiling gently as the boy finally looked at her. Yes? He asked in return, failing to notice the hesitation and shyness in her voice, most probably because she was Amaterasu, the cold and always angry goddess who leaves no one unpunished. There was no reason for him to suspect anything unusual in her demeanor. Thank you? Naruto was about to ask her the reason behind the statement, but wasn't able to when her rosy lips touched the soft skin of his cheek. What? Different shades of red blossomed on his cheeks as he tried to get his mind back in control. Amaterasu, who was watching him silently, couldn't help but gush at how cute he was looking at that moment. Perfect future husband material, her mind noted subconsciously, but before it could travel any further on that path, she stopped it. Why? Because the thoughts that the immoral part of her mind was processing were eerily similar to the thoughts that could place you in that lady's list of bad guys, which she proudly labeled predators and their dumb minds. She didn't want to be on that list. Never. Why did you do that? Amaterasu blinked and then looked at the boy, who for some reason was pouting at her. That only served to increase his cuteness in her eyes. Are you ashamed of kissing your wife in public, Naruto-kun? She knew she hit the weak spot when the boy recoiled in embarrassment, and refused to look at her for a few good seconds. After stuttering and mumbling some incoherent words and syllables, Naruto finally looked back at her and huffed slightly, indicating that he didn't like the way she was poking fun at him. I'm still a kid, you know. Calling me your husband in public will only make you sound like a pervert, he whispered, hoping that she would stop teasing him in public like that. Sure, being called a husband from a beautiful woman sounded amazing and made you feel delighted, but at that same time, just a reminder that she was far older than him was enough to shatter the glass of his happiness. If that was not enough, then came the difference between their status. She was a goddess, one who was feared by everyone and was probably going to live for eons, while he on the other hand was nothing but an insignificant human, a being whose existence was fleeting. Don't call me that, Naruto, Amaterasu spoke in a fake hurtful voice. I'm not a pervert. The boy simply blinked at her in response. Then what should I call you? In answer, Amaterasu lowered her head so that their eyes could meet perfectly, and then flashed him a bright smile, a smile that overshadowed every other smile she had ever concocted on her lips in the past. Call me a devotee of yours, she responded, her words sending the boy's mind into a frenzy. Devotee? How does that make any sense? The goddess didn't waver, nor did the smile on her face. What is a devotee? she asked him and waited for him to answer. Naruto hummed lightly. I don't know. He lied because he knew what a devotee meant, but not to such an extent that he could elaborate it in front of a deity. A devotee is a person who loves someone or something so much that they commit themselves entirely to that person or thing. What it has to do with Naruto stopped as a sudden wave of realization washed over his mind, and in an instant everything began to make sense. Wait, that means? I love you. You are the only one who has managed to turn this goddess into a devotee, Naruto. That was the day Amaterasu found out what Naruto looked like when his brain crashed and decided that her being the reason for that wasn't that bad, not at all. She was about to tease him further, but fate had other plans for them. Amaterasu, is that you? Black eyes widened in surprise when a familiar voice entered her ears, making her red due to embarrassment. No, not her. She gulped, refusing to turn around and face the devil. Amaterasu. The sun goddess cursed under her breath and finally turned around to face her shame that was standing in the form of Sayla Gremory. Sayla, her eyes twitched in annoyance when she saw an arrogant smile bubbling on the face of her foe, and that smile only broadened when Sayla saw her teenage form completely. The things I do for Naruto. She wanted to yell at the female Lucifer but refrained from doing so, knowing very well that their bickering would only attract more people. Unfortunately, Sayla was not having any such thoughts. With a hand on her abdomen, the ruler of the underworld let out a loud chuckle, one that made Amaterasu cringe in shame. PFFF. Sayla smirked at her. What are you doing here, Amaterasu-chan? Are you lost or something, my child? Her arrogant and ridiculing tone helped nothing in solving the tension that had begun to simmer between the two powerful individuals, mostly from Amaterasu's side. Shut up, Sayla. Sayla blinked and then closed her mouth when she realized just what she was doing. Ridiculing leaders of other factions was considered rude, even more when done by another leader like her. If Grafia found about it by any chance, then she would kill her. I'm sorry, Amaterasu. She bowed to the angry teenager. I couldn't hold my laugh when I saw you in this form. My bad. Her words did nothing to alleviate the anger of the goddess. Instead, it only served to increase it further, something Sayla immediately noticed when Amaterasu began to analyze her intensely. What are you doing here anyway, Sayla? Amaterasu whispered out, her voice now filled with annoyance and anger. As far as I know, you rarely visit the human world, especially a trivial place like this. The sun goddess was right, and Sayla couldn't help but curse the woman for being too observant and smart while putting out her remarks. Rias brought me here. She immediately answered, knowing very well just how much Amaterasu hated waiting. Rias. Both the women had to look to their left when a distinct voice reached their ears, one that made Amaterasu even angrier. These two sisters are going to ruin my day, she bemoaned to herself as her eyes followed a smiling Rias until she finally caught up to them. Where did you go, sister? I was looking for you, and every Rias paused and took a notice of her surrounding. Amaterasu-san? Her eyes widened to massive proportions when they saw a surprising spectacle in front of her. It seemed like a nightmare, yet at the same time felt like nothing like one. What are you doing here? In this disguise? She wanted to add but abstained from saying it aloud because she knew the goddess would not like that. Amaterasu looked back and forth between the two sisters and sighed dejectedly. Yes, I'm Amaterasu, and no, this is not my real body. It's just a small disguise I use to hide myself while spending time with Naruto in public. The anger inside her reached unimaginable levels when, instead of focusing on her words and warning, both the sisters began to shift their eyes around in order to search for the aforementioned boy. Naruto! Sayla was the first to express her shock at the revelation, and was soon followed by her little sister, the only difference being that while her shock was due to fear of a recent event, Ria's shock on the other hand was simply because of surprise and excitement of being able to see her friend. Naruto? Where is he? Rias yelled at the woman, for once not fearing that she might annoy a goddess by her words. Tell me. She would have spoken more but was immediately silenced by a thoroughly annoyed goddess. I don't know. Amaterasu sneered at the sisters and moved a little to her side, appearing as if she was hiding something behind her, an action that didn't go unnoticed by the two devils. He's behind you. And no, you are absolutely wrong, Gremory girl. Amaterasu huffed in anger. And we can clearly see him, Amaterasu. Hearing the words of a fellow faction leader, Amaterasu looked behind her and groaned when she saw that Naruto was fully awake now and was looking at them with confusion in his eyes. What happened, Amaterasu? She almost squealed as she saw him let out a cute yawn. Nothing, Naruto. You just fell asleep. And what is Rias doing here? Just like that, her mood turned sour. My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. I had to jinx myself earlier, she sadly admitted to herself, because with Rias and Sayla here, Naruto wouldn't be able to give his sole attention to her anymore. Whatever happiness that was left within her vanished when the Gremory girl interrupted her yet again. Naruto! Rias smiled at her friend, something that made Amaterasu ponder the idea of a world without devils, specifically from the Gremory and Citri house. Oblivious to everything that was transpiring around him, Naruto smiled back at Rias and was about to greet her back but paused when his eyes took notice of the person who was standing just behind her. As Sayla-san. Like a raucous tornado, memories of the past struck his mind and painted his cheeks with an embarrassing hue of red. Suck on them harder. His throat went dry just at the mere recollection of that horrendous memory, one that probably led to his preference for bigger today. And Naruto Sayla was not doing any better. Just like him, her mind was also being bombarded with the memories of that unfortunate night. They are too big. I can't. Red tainted her skin too. How are you? I'm fine and no, I don't feel like drinking milk from you again. Amaterasu raised her hand and stopped Sayla before she could say anything in her defense. She didn't need that because the facts of the events were clear in her eyes. You molested him, she whispered, her fingers itching to release the countless torrents of the unforgiving black flames at her command. Milk. Her lips parted a little to take a deep breath, one that was very much needed at that moment to forget that word. It was both amazing and irritating how one simple word was able to ruin her mood in a matter of seconds. At one moment, she was wandering around counter after counter to buy the things that her beloved Naruto needed at his house, and at another, she was glaring daggers at the ruler of the underworld, who right now was shivering uncontrollably. As she should. Amaterasu's vicious side whispered to her, and she couldn't agree more with that aspect of herself. Who the hell does that, Sayla? The goddess of the universe voiced her annoyance again, this time with an even more vicious tone. It's so gross. She added, not forgetting that she was equally guilty of leaving Naruto alone on that day. She should have followed him, but she didn't, and now she was reaping the bitter fruits of her mistake. But still, the main culprit was Sayla. I think between this trivial game of ours, you have forgotten that Naruto is still a child, Sayla. You don't do these things with a child. Her voice was cold, so much that it made everyone freeze for a good amount of time. I was just trying to help him. Fury blazed within Amaterasu's eyes. By shoving you in his face? She snarled and was about to admonish her more but stopped when she felt a tug on her wrist. Glancing down, she saw an innocent-looking Naruto who was staring at her with a sad scowl on his face. She knew what he was about to do but she still couldn't stop him. Don't yell at her like that. She is telling the truth. Confusion was the first emotion that flooded her mind when she listened to that statement of Naruto. How did her creepy behavior help you? She immediately asked him and had to hold back herself from puking when she saw a red explode on his cheeks at the mention of the incident. Did he like what Sayla did to him that day? No. She refused to entertain that vile thought. There was no way her Naruto would like something as immoral as that. I was the one who reached to her for some milk. Oh, go on. Someone stole my favorite bottle of flavored milk, and when I went to her for some help, she misunderstood my words and thought I was asking. Amaterasu's mind went numb. For milk? She mumbled monotonously while cringing on the inside when Naruto nodded his head in positive. I see her eyes lowered a little, enough for her to hide them from everyone else's gazes. What else did she do to you that night? It wasn't a question that could be evaded easily, and she was sure Naruto knew that very well too. It needed to be answered at all costs. Nothing. A wave of relief washed over her. She whispered, trying her best to hide her relief from everyone else. Still, I can't forgive her and I'm sure Kushina-san won't either once I tell her everything. Plump pink lips curved up into a sinister smirk as she noticed Sayla tense a little. As a fellow faction leader, she couldn't punish Sayla, but Amaterasu was sure her soon-to-be mother-in-law could do that without any problem. There was no way Sayla would be able to escape that lady's wrath. Hell, even she couldn't do it, as much as she hated to admit it. Look, Amaterasu. There's no need to drag Kushina-san into this. We both are responsible adults, and I'm sure we can solve this without dragging anyone else into this. Sayla spoke more quickly than her usual cadence, no doubt trying to dissuade her from involving that redhead she-demon. Sella's response was unsatisfactory and Amaterasu was about to voice her objection to it, but stopped when she saw something interesting. Rias. Her sinister smirk took a devious turn as she deluged in the scowl that the poor child had on her face. It was an obvious indication that even Sella's sister wasn't convinced by her words. Did you hear that, Rias? She finally raised her head and looked at the girl who subconsciously stepped a little away from her. Yes. Rias, who had been hearing everything from the sidelines, nodded her head and responded to the goddess. Then tell me, do you think what your sister did was okay? The princess of the Gremory house gulped and immediately looked down in shame as the weight of her sister's lewd actions finally fell on her little shoulders. She could deny it, but deep inside Rias knew what her sister had done on that night was wrong, and she needed to be punished for it. Not only did her sister unintentionally molested a little child, but that said child was also Rias' best friend. No, she intoned, anger and frustration discernible in her voice. It was bad and she needs to be punished for it. A small scowl materialized on her face when her sister began to sputter nonsense in her defense. Leave it to Sayla to be an utter clown in front of everyone. Shut up, sister. Rias pouted as she wasn't in the mood for fighting. While she knew what Sayla did was unpleasant, she couldn't ignore the fact that it all happened a long time ago, and the fact that the victim himself was vouching for her sister only made the whole thing more complex. Sure, she was angry at Sayla for taking away Naruto's innocence, but at the same time, she could understand why she did everything in the first place. Tearing up slightly over her Naruto, she finished with, "You don't have any right to say anything after you took away Naruto's innocence. He is my best friend and I won't forgive you so easily." But Rias, I did that to help him. You don't have to apologize for anything, Miss Sayla. Naruto's unique sweet voice compelled the three females to turn their heads towards him. As I had said, it was a silly mistake and I don't hold you responsible for anything. His bright smile soothed the flames of rebuttal that were about to vacate Amaterasu's mouth. Tough and cold as she might act in front of everyone, Naruto was sure she would never argue with him, at least not in the matters that concerned him. Also, don't worry about my mother. Amaterasu-chan won't tell her anything. Right? His eyes traveled to her face and glowed with happiness when they saw a pout resting there. She was looking cute, he noted idly. Amaterasu neither confirmed nor denied his claim. It was Sayla who spoke this time, and if her smile was anything to go by, then one could tell she was utterly relieved by the recent development. Thank you, Naruto. She chirped and engulfed the boy in a light hug, all while skillfully evading Amaterasu, who tried to stop her from doing that. It was my mistake, Naruto answered shortly and began to rub the back of his head sheepishly. I blurted out everything once I saw your face. Red covered his cheeks as he tried to look at her face again. Amaterasu and Rias noticed that. Ahem, they both coughed in unison and were pleased when the boy looked away from Sayla's face. Realizing that it was the best opportunity to take Naruto away from the two faction leaders, Rias grabbed his hand in her own and began to drag him towards the counters. Come with me, Naruto. I'll help you with your shopping. It was an excuse to get some alone time with him, but Rias didn't care as long as she was getting that. Greed and possessiveness were the crucial aspects of her existence, after all. Hey! Don't drag me like that, Rias. As the two vanished from the section of the store, Amaterasu and Sayla finally looked at each other and began to glare as fiercely as they could. Sayla, who had been silent throughout the whole commotion, was now not holding back and giving a tough competition to Amaterasu. Sayla. Amaterasu's voice returned to its original state, completely cold and devoid of any emotion whatsoever. Amaterasu. Sayla's voice wasn't any different. Aside from the unforgiving coldness, it had a tinge of power hidden within it too. It was as if she was trying to tell the goddess with whom she was arguing. She was the Lucifer of the underworld, and it wouldn't take long for her to erase Amaterasu out of existence if she wanted to. Keep your hands to yourself and stay away from him. He is mine. I brought him and his parents to this world. They are my family. Amaterasu's intimidation might have silenced her in front of Naruto, but he was nowhere to be seen now. Without him being there, Sayla could be her true self, one who hardly feared anyone. PFF, I'll do whatever I want, Amaterasu. If Naruto wants to, I'll let him play with me again. The ground beneath her cracked as Amaterasu began to radiate an ominous shroud of power. For others, it might have been intimidating, but for Sayla, it was nothing more than a trivial show of power, one that could hardly affect her anymore. She had experienced worse during that infamous war. You may be a little more powerful than me, Sayla, but remember, I can still take you down with me. Now Sayla tensed a little. Is she thinking what I'm thinking she's thinking? She thought to herself in concern. But I won't do that right now. Naruto is still in the building. The sheer apathy in Amaterasu's voice took Sayla off guard. The hell? You're only worried about Naruto getting hurt during our fight? She almost yelled at the goddess. Yes. He is the only one I care about. Others can die for all I want. Sayla was sweating bullets now. She might have been a brave leader a few seconds ago, but after hearing the impassive words of Amaterasu, something changed inside her mind. Now even she was getting a little scared of the goddess. That's not how you should work, Amaterasu. As a goddess, I think it's your duty to worry about everyone. The leader of the underworld was surprised yet again when Amaterasu scoffed at her statement. Don't dictate how I should act, Sayla. I know my duties really well and I don't need anyone to tell me what I should and shouldn't do, especially not a sexual predator. Her words had the desired effect on Sayla as she began to fume lightly in anger. It was working. Amaterasu noticed and smiled when her fellow leader began to mutter curses at her. They were insignificant, but that anger wasn't, as it was amazing to see her wither in it. Bitch. Amaterasu smirked. Oh, that you are, Sayla. A bitch in heat who targets young children and forces them to drink her milk. Sayla was practically shaking in anger now. How dare you, Amaterasu? Do you even know what you are saying? Didn't Naruto just say it was all a big misunderstanding? An unimaginable amount of anger was surging through her veins, begging her to beat down the goddess in front of her, but still, she kept her calm, just for the sake of her sister and Naruto. Sure, misunderstanding. Try to explain it to Kushina-san when I tell her what heinous things have you done to her son. I'm sure she will love it. Sayla stiffened. You wouldn't do that. You can't do that. Please don't do that. The anger from before turned into fear as she tried to argue with the stubborn goddess. Naruto told you not to do that, Amaterasu. Her mind recalled the promise between the boy and the goddess. That he did, but I didn't say I won't. I just hummed at him. But that counts as yes, right? Aquamarine eyes twitched slightly with annoyance dancing within them. Answer me clearly, Amaterasu. Don't hum at me. Sayla groaned. While the two leaders were arguing with each other in the corner of the shop, Naruto and Rias, on the other hand, were wandering around the shop aimlessly. Counters after counters, they were touring every part of the shop, aspiring to find something that could excite their prying eyes. Nothing here too, Naruto. It's just cereal. Rias groaned in annoyance as they were yet again met with nothing but disappointment. Seriously, was there not a single item worth purchasing in this enormous store? In the past, she had visited many stores similar to this with her sister, and every time, she was able to find something cool for herself. But now, when she wanted to buy something cool for Naruto, she couldn't find anything. It's okay, Rias. I don't need anything. Naruto knew his friend was having a hard time, so he tried to reassure her. We should buy the groceries first. He motioned her to move along, but the girl refused to follow him. No. I want to buy something for you, Naruto. And unless I do that, I won't leave this store. A sigh left his lips. Fine, but can we please buy the groceries first? He asked her, too tired to argue back at all. Rias nodded her head, her eyes still trying to find something cool on the shelves. Okay, but I'm telling you. I won't leave this store without buying something nice for you, Naruto. Okay, Rias. With that said, the two began to march towards the adjacent section of the store where countless fresh vegetables and fruits were lined up in a perfectly organized manner. Tomatoes. Rias began to salivate at the mere glimpse of her favorite fruit. It was amazing, and being covered in red only made it more incredible in her eyes. We don't need them. Naruto's voice brought her back to her senses. Oh, come on, Naruto. Just one? She groaned and gave him her best puppy eyes look, but the boy just shrugged her cuteness attack off and began to walk towards the other side of the section where vegetables were placed. Hey, don't ignore me like that, idiot. Her shout had no effect on him as he continued to walk away from her. Fine, if you don't want to buy tomatoes then don't, but at least don't ignore me like that, Naruto. Rias was walking beside the boy in a blink of an eye and was glaring at him with an adorable pout on her face. She'll let me focus on the vegetables, Rias. The audacity of this idiot. Here she was, the princess of the underworld, following him like a lost puppy, and he dared to ignore her like that. Unacceptable. It was unacceptable. He needed to be punished, and what's a better punishment than teasing him about that incident? A wicked smirk flickered on her lips as she stared at her friend, who was cherry-picking the vegetables from the counter. I see. Are you going to buy milk too, Naruto? Or are you going to suck it directly from my sisters? Her smirk widened when the boy abruptly stopped his actions and froze in his place. It was hilarious. What? Eyes wide as saucers, Naruto could only stutter out a single word. Rias looked away from him, feigning anger in order to make her act look more genuine. If she wanted to punish him, then she needed to give her best, as her friend was very good at picking up lies on her face. Don't act so surprised, Naruto. I haven't forgotten what just happened there with Amaterasu and my sister. I'm still angry about it, especially with you. How could you do that to my sister, Naruto? She whispered, intentionally cracking up her voice so that she could make him feel like she was on the verge of crying. Naruto stood up and placed a hand on her shoulder. It was a misunderstanding, I swear. He tried to resolve the tension between them, but his attempts were proven futile as the girl remained still in her place and didn't turn around. Please believe me, Rias. I had no intention to do such a thing with your sister. I greatly respect her. Really? Naruto nodded at her immediately. Yes. I don't believe you. A smile almost broke out on her lips, but she managed to get a hold of herself before that could happen. You will do this again with someone else, maybe Amaterasu or that big-tit fox Anchisaka. She mentally apologized to the yokai leader for the disrespect, but it was the truth. Her were abnormally big for her body, and it made her feel inferior to her, something that Rias didn't like a bit. What are you saying, Rias? I would never do those immoral things to Anchisaka. That was the moment Rias turned around and scoffed at his statement. Lies. I know you would. I have seen you stare at them from afar. She wasn't lying. She really had, but the boy didn't know about it until now. You like big, and I won't be surprised if you end up doing the same thing with her, Naruto. It was yet another fair accusation, but this time, her friend surprised her when a wave of red covered his whole cheeks. He really would? Now, she was beginning to worry about him. Why are you blushing? The anger that she had been amassing until now turned real when the boy looked away from her. It's nothing, Rias. Rias could see the uncertainty on his face, and that made her a little anxious. Does he think about his aunt like that? She didn't want to believe that, but the signs that the boy was providing her indicated otherwise. Fuck my life, Aunt. Her face deflated, and her eyes drooped down in sadness as she began to curse herself for having small. As his best friend, he should only be looking at my. I see. Let's carry on with the shopping then. The spark in her voice was long gone as she had no reason to appear happy now. Naruto truly outplayed her this time. Her sadness didn't go unnoticed by the blonde boy. Rias? He moved his hand to her face and raised it a little so that he could see her eyes. Look at you. Why are you crying like that over such a simple thing? His question was met with silence as the girl had no idea how to answer it. Are you sad because I did that thing with your sister? He asked again and was pleased when the girl finally reacted. Yes. Naruto wiped the tears away from her face and giggled at her. But why? Didn't I promise you that I won't do it again? He whispered, toning down his laughs a little. Moments like this were the reason why he loved her so much. She was so adorable, and he could never get enough of her bubbly nature. If she wasn't going to be betrothed to that asshole, then Naruto was sure he would have asked for her hand immediately. Yes, you did, Rias whispered, her voice still as fragile as a bird chirp. But you will break your promise, I know that. You can't resist big. Her lips quivered with sadness, but before she could fall deeper into the ominous veil, Naruto grabbed her and hauled her out of it by flashing her that beautiful smile. I won't. I promise. And what makes you think I like people on the basis of their bust size? It was a genuine question, one that Naruto had been waiting to ask her for a long time but couldn't due to some reason. Now that Rias thought about it, she didn't really have any substantial evidence to prove her theory valid aside from the fact that, except for Kushina-san, every woman in Naruto's life had huge. But that can't be used as proof. It's just a coincidence. She mumbled to herself. I don't know. Her eyes wandered over to him and squinted with shame when he gave her a dead look. It was a look that spoke volumes and made Rias more ashamed of herself. I just believe that because every woman in your life has huge. She finally said what she had been thinking and was glad when instead of scolding her, Naruto began to laugh at her. My mother. Rias interrupted her. I meant the women you can potentially fall in love with. A tinge of red appeared on her cheeks as she tried to remain calm in front of him. It was hard, she had to admit that, especially when she was standing so close to him. Naruto finally understood everything. But why are you worried about my love life? He asked her, inching a little closer to her face so that he could see the emotions there clearly. I am not worried about anything. If it was any other day, then Naruto would have ignored the stuttering, but today, he was a little more mindful of her emotions and instantly saw something unusual on her face. Don't tell me that you are in love with me, Rias. It was a joke, one that he just made up to tease his friend, but when the color on her cheeks darkened, and she began to stutter harder, Naruto gulped loudly. Rias, he whispered in hope that she would answer, but she didn't. Speak something, he urged her again, but she didn't react. Finally, after remaining silent for a whole minute, Rias opened her mouth as she smiled at him. Of course not. What is there to love about you? You are a pervert. Just like that, the earlier atmosphere of anxiety evaporated immediately as the two friends began to argue back and forth again. I'm a very cool guy who likes big and loves to suck milk out of them. The smirk on Rias' face was cruel, and Naruto couldn't help but be scared of it. For the 1000th time, I don't have a fetish for sucking on a stranger's. Then, what about people like me? Would you suck on my too once they get bigger, a pervert? Naruto had enough of her teasing. If she wasn't going to be silent, then he knew a very effective way of making her do so. It just needed him to be a little brave and indecent. Of course, Rias. I'm just waiting for the day when you are huge enough for me to suck them dry. The result was instantaneous. Rias jumped away from him like he had the plague and began to utter a string of curses towards him. Pervert. That was the only one he was able to hear clearly since the rest of them were barely audible due to the ambient music playing in the store. Just for you, Rias. Shut up. Only if you place your lips on mine. Naruto, stop. I haven't even begun, Rias. Realizing that his plan worked, he went over to her side and handed her the empty grocery bag. Since you are finally silent, I think we can continue our shopping now, Rias. With that said, he kneeled down in front of the vegetable again and began to hand-pick the freshest ones. It was a mistake. It was a big fucking mistake. She should have never accepted his offer. That offer is now going to lead me into a big fucking mess. Sayla thought to herself as she stared at the scene in front of her. Red, blonde, and black were dancing in harmony as the Namikaze family continued to prepare a lunch for her and her sister. Oh, Rias is with them too. She forgot to notice that. But then again, it wasn't that surprising, as her sister loved to spend most of her time with Naruto and his family, something that she wanted to do too but couldn't because of the fear of that red-haired devil. That red-haired woman, no matter how weak and small she might look to others, was a force to be reckoned with. If she wanted, Sayla was sure the woman could punish any of them without facing any consequences. Why? Because of the child that was playing alongside her in the kitchen. Naruto was both her greatest strength and her weakness. It was only because of him, Kushina could do anything to Amaterasu and still remain alive to tell the tale. Otherwise, she very well knew how vicious the black-haired goddess was. But she looks content with her now. Sayla didn't fail to notice how well both the women were behaving towards each other. It was like they were learning to coexist with each other as time went on. It was nice to see, but as much as she wanted them to remain happy around each other, their closeness rang silent alarms in her mind. Amaterasu. Sayla froze when Kushina uttered the goddess name. Pass me that bottle of milk. Beads of sweat began to roll down her face when Amaterasu looked at her and flashed her that famous vicious smirk of hers. Fuck, she groaned and began to pray to whomever she could. Hell, she was ready to worship God if it meant she could escape the embarrassment and scolding that was awaiting her on the other side of the table. Sayla. Her eyes snapped open. Yes? Her feeble voice was like an elixir for Amaterasu. Otherwise, there was no reason why she would smile at her like that. Give me the milk. An uncomfortable silence engulfed the entire room as soon as the black-haired goddess uttered those words. Naruto and Rias, who were helping Kushina with her work, stopped whatever they were doing and gulped in unison. Things were about to get heated, they knew, but made no effort to stop any of the two leaders. They were beyond their grasps, and the only thing the children could do was watch everything unfold in front of them. Bitch, I'm going to fuck her up for sure. Sayla smiled at the goddess and nodded at her. Sure, the smile on her face wavered a little when Amaterasu narrowed her eyes on her. It was humiliating, because it made Sayla feel like a scared puppy, which she clearly wasn't. It was just that the scenario wasn't in her favor today. Otherwise, she would have killed the goddess twice by now. First at the supermarket, and second time right now. Also, make sure it's skimmed. Naruto doesn't like thick milk. I know that it was a slip of tongue, Sayla swore it was, but the looks that people around were giving her made it seem like it wasn't. Satan, please kill me already. She lowered her head so that she didn't have to see anyone and began to walk towards the counter where that damned bottle of milk was placed. Grafia was right, I should have never left my office today. Sayla grumbled to herself as she gently picked up the bottle of milk and handed it over to the nefarious woman known as Amaterasu. Here, she murmured. And please kill yourself with it. She viciously added in her mind. Thanks. Sayla knew she meant none of that. Amaterasu wasn't someone who thanked people for doing the bare minimum. She was wicked and unpredictable. And that's why I'm sweating so much. This woman is going to open her mouth sooner or later, I know that. She murmured to herself, not noticing the look Kushina was giving her. Sayla, are you okay, dear? The leader of the underworld blinked at the warmth that was emanating from Kushina's voice. Dear, she didn't know why the woman used that term, but she loved it, absolutely loved it. More the devil inside her awakened and began to ask for more of it, but before she ended up saying something stupid, Sayla controlled herself and smiled at the lady. I'm fine, Kushina-san. It's just. She is allergic to milk. Enough, Sayla finally had enough of that black-haired dummy. No, I'm not, she glared at her. And can you please shut up for a moment, idiot? That did it for Amaterasu. In a blink of an eye, she was standing in front of Sayla, her fingers twitching to incinerate her from existence. And what if I don't? What are you going to do then, Sayla? She asked her. Then Sayla looked at Kushina and then at the children before sighing to herself. It was meaningless, she noted. In the end, it would only ruin the warm atmosphere around them, and she didn't want that. Then, I'll just go back to my seat and wait for the lunch to be prepared. It was a big blow to her ego, but she was ready to swallow it this time as the happiness of the family in front of her mattered far more than some stupid argument. Pathetic cow. Bonk. Sayla smirked when the edge of a wooden spoon made contact with the head of Amaterasu. Manners, lady? You can't ridicule my guest like that. It was Kushina who saved the day for Sayla, and she was more than happy with that. Anything or anyone that could hurt Amaterasu was amazing or worthy of praise in her book. Punch her too. She screamed internally, but much to her displeasure, nothing like that happened. Why did you have to hit me for that? I was just okay, I'm sorry, Kasama. Kushina smiled at the woman. Now, that's like my girl. disciplined and soft-spoken. She patted the goddess. If you only hit me. Now that made Kushina confused. Whatever Amaterasu just spoke was utterly ridiculous. She punished everyone who made mistakes in front of her, be it her handsome husband or her cute child. I punish everyone. My punishments are impartial. They are balanced as everything should be. Amaterasu scoffed at the statement. Really? Then why didn't you punish Seila? She asked her and looked at the mentioned woman who was sweating profusely now. Why would I punish her, Ama? She hasn't done anything wrong. A smirk slithered its way to her lips. You are a stew fool if you believe that, Kasama. She whispered, not looking away from the fellow leader for a second. Her horror-filled face was a sight to behold, and she wanted to relish it as much as possible. What do you mean? Amaterasu was about to speak but stopped when she sensed someone's gaze on her. Looking behind her, she was proven right when she saw Naruto looking at her, his eyes filled with apathy, but she could trace a bit of sadness in it. A sudden surge of pain struck her heart. The more she looked at him, the bigger the surge got. Don't give me that look. Amaterasu pleaded to the boy mentally, but sadly, he couldn't receive her message via her thoughts. It's arg. Nothing. She has done nothing. After so many years of waiting, Amaterasu finally had the perfect opportunity to belittle and harm Seila without even touching her, but she let it go. Why? It's all for the blonde-haired boy standing beside his mother. Then again, everything she did has always been for him, ever since the beginning. Minato Namikaze, chairman of the Namikaze Corporation, groaned dejectedly as his friend Takahashi, who also happened to be his most loyal subordinate, dropped another pile of unchecked documents on his table. Hokage or not, this damn paperwork follows me everywhere. He murmured and was about to protest against the infamous adversary but abstained himself from doing so when the familiar face of his wife flashed before his eyes. She will kill me if she hears that I skipped work again. With a nervous smile on his face, he picked up his pen again and began to pore through the documents. Takashi, who was watching his master from afar, didn't even need to ask what was going through his mind. The nervous smile his master had on his face was enough to let him know everything. Are you okay, Minato-sama? Still, that didn't stop him from teasing his master a little. The man deserved a little break after all. Absolutely, Takashi. Minato blurted out, the nervous smile still plastered on his beautiful face. I don't think so, Minato-sama. You are sweating a lot. The old man whispered while pointing at his master's face, which was doused in fear, stress, and sweat. Should I lower the temperature? He asked. I'm flattered that you care about me so much, but as I said, I'm absolutely fine, Takahashi. No need to do anything. Takahashi sighed at his master and kept staring at him for a few more seconds before deciding to drop the subject. Is it because of Naruto-sama? The man would have continued further, but a sharp glare from Minato silenced him in an instant. How many times do I have to tell you, Takahashi? Minato asked in a scolding tone. Call him Naruto-kun. He is not your senior. His tone was similar to what Kushina would always use to admonish Naruto. So Takahashi knew he better follow the order instead of arguing against it. I'm sorry, Minato-sama. Minato's eyes softened as he saw guilt and shame shroud the face of his old friend. No need for that. All I'm telling you is that instead of spoiling Naruto with your love, you should be a little strict to him. He paused for a second, trying to find a good analogy to convey his message. Yeah, like a grandson. You should treat him as such. I'll try my best, Minato-sama. Takashi would be lying if he said he didn't like what he had just heard come out from his master's mouth. Moments like these were the reason he had stayed with this family for so long. Unlike the other rich families that he had served in Kyoto, this little family of these strange individuals truly felt like a family. They were this sweet little group of his precious people, and he wanted nothing but to see them prosper and smile all the way to the end. That's what I'm here for. A small smile blossomed on his wrinkled lips. Oblivious to everything that was going inside his friend's mind, Minato looked at him and smiled. Did you tell Naruto to visit me? He asked, remembering very well that he had told the old man to inform Naruto about their little meeting. Yes, Minato-sama. Satisfied with the answer, Minato was about to start rummaging through the sheets of paper again, but was stopped by the sudden intrusion caused by familiar energy. Naruto. A bright smile formed on his thin lips as he saw Naruto enter his office with a confused look on his face. Naruto, you here? Unable to control his excitement, Minato let out a boisterous laugh at his child. Yes, Naruto whispered, still not sure as to why he was summoned to his father's office in the first place. Minato, who was eagerly waiting for his son's response, slumped in his chair as he heard his unenthusiastic voice. Oh, come on, Naruto. Don't be so cold to me, he murmured. You could have shown some excitement there, you know? His face slumped further in defeat when Naruto just remained silent in response. What do you mean by that, Dad? Naruto asked his father, sounding a little defensive because he was being framed as an awful son. I gave you a hug when you left for work. What else do you want? A pout formed on his lips, making him look even cuter in his father's eyes. Okay, Minato raised his hands in defeat. But still you could have hugged me again. You are embarrassing me in front of Takahashi-ji now. Takahashi, who was watching everything unfold from the sidelines, stiffened when his name was called out between the discussion. I don't mind it, Naruto-kun. I'm used to it by now. He whispered in an assuring tone, hoping to ease his little master's worries. Naruto looked at the old man and then back at his father. Of course you don't, old man, but I do. I'm not a child anymore. But you will always remain a child in my eyes, Naruto-kun. And I think the same goes for Minato and Kushina-sama. Humph, Naruto huffed. You guys never leave a chance to embarrass me in front of people. Not a child anymore. Both the boy and the old man's sweat dropped when Minato shouted that sentence out of nowhere for no reason. Huh! They both muttered in unison. In response to their question, Minato looked at them and flashed them a bright smile. Your mother wants to meet you, Naruto. She said she wanted to meet you urgently? Now that froze Naruto in fear. Huh! Forgetting about the not a child anymore part, Naruto whispered as a newfound fear of his mother settled inside his heart. She said she wanted to meet you by 11. As if Takahashi knew what was about to come next, he raised his hand a little and glanced at his watch. It's 11:15 right now, Naruto-kun, he informed the nervous child. Shit. With a flicker of flash, he vanished from the office, leaving behind a smug Minato and a worried Takahashi. Serves him right for not giving me a hug. Takashi was once again reminded why he loved this family so much. There's no one like them. A small smile made its way to his wrinkled lips as he began to walk towards his master so that he could assist him in his work. Namake's mansion. As soon as Naruto entered his house, he was greeted by an uncommon spectacle, something he had only seen happen when they were about to go on an outing to Kyoto. Perfectly organized clothes, newly bought bags, and stacks of uncountable books were all arranged on the table of their main hall. What is happening? Naruto asked himself because as far as he knew they were not going on an outing anytime soon. Then why are these things arranged on this table? He whispered, getting more confused by each passing second. Naruto, is that you? A shudder ran down Naruto's spine as soon as he heard his mother's voice. Did I do something wrong? He thought as he began to rush to the kitchen, all while trying to remember all the mistakes that he had committed in the span of the last few days. Upon reaching his destination, the anxiety inside him lessened a little when his eyes saw his ever-beautiful mother working in the kitchen with that famous green apron wrapped around her. Ah, you are here. Acknowledging Naruto's presence, Kushina turned off the stove and walked over to him with a noticeable discomfort in her stride. Are you all right? She asked and began to glare at him with her sharp purple eyes. The intensity of her glare was so much that it forced Naruto to take a few steps back in fright. What took you so long? Her question was soon followed by pain as she bonked him on the head with the backside of the wooden ladle. I was talking about something important with Dad. Naruto was fast to respond and made sure to put on his most innocent face while he did so. His mother was a sucker for that look, and he was sure she would fall for it again. Kushina paused to stare at his face for a second and huffed when she saw the look he had mustered there. I see, but still you should never be late when I call you for a meeting, Naruto. Especially when it's about something this important and annoying. While the last part only came out of her mouth as a whisper, Naruto was able to hear it and sensed the irritation beneath it. Annoying? He was quick to point out the obvious. Yes. Kushina sulked even further, but before Naruto could sense anything wrong with her, she collected herself and smiled at him. But before we talk about it, let's eat the lunch I have prepared for you. Naruto blinked at his mother in confusion. She is sad about something. People might say whatever they want about his mother, but Naruto loved her dearly, and when he saw the flickers of worry lingering on her face, he couldn't help but become concerned too. What is she hiding? Naruto was about to ask her but halted midway when the sweet aroma of the food that his mother had prepared for him entered his nostrils. Ramen! The mouth-watering smell of his favorite dish caused his mouth to overflow with drool, and his stomach to growl in hunger. Start eating, Naruto. I have made all of this only for you. Kushina chirped at him as he picked up the chopsticks from the table, ready to take his first bite. The moment he slurped down the broth-covered soba noodles, a warm feeling surged through his whole body. Kushina, who was sitting opposite him, smiled ever so slightly at her son and leaned forward, propping her arms along the glass table and looking at her son expectantly. The glint in her eyes prompted warning bells to sound in Naruto's mind. As he munched on more ramen, gears in his mind began to work faster. Shit. Whenever his mother had such a glint in her eyes, it signified only one thing. She wants something from me. He thought while the noodles loosely hung below his mouth. She had cooked all his favorite dishes, all of them. Something is about to happen. Naruto could feel it in his bones. How is the food, Naruto? Kushina's voice brought him out from his thoughts as he nervously smiled at her. It's delicious, he whispered, still not sure whether he was going to be safe or not. My baby still likes his mother's cooking. So sweet. Kushina squealed in delight, but the dangerous glint still did not leave her eyes. It was there, telling him that he was about to regret his very existence. Why are you sweating, Naruto? Kushina asked him, her eyes looking at him in worry. It's nothing, Mom. I'm just. Naruto paused to think about an excuse but sadly couldn't come up with one. Fortunately for him, his mother helped him with that. Is the food too spicy? Naruto smiled at her, thanking her for saving him from being exposed. Yes. It's a little spicy, but it's fine. Kushina stared at him for a second before she relaxed on her chair. I see. She whispered, sounding sad and tired at the same time. Well, now that you are comfortable, I think we can talk about that. Her words froze Naruto. About what? He almost choked on his food. In response, Kushina sulked even further, trying nothing to hide her dismay about what was to come next. Your father, and that she paused and calmed herself down. There is no need to call that woman a bitch in front of Naruto. The frown on her face deepened. And Amaterasu-chan has decided that you need to learn how to live on your own. She muttered the last few words as if they were the vilest words in existence. What? Kushina's heart shattered into a million pieces as she saw the look of shock on her son's face. Even he doesn't want to go. She thought to herself. Your father thinks that you should start living on your own from now on. She didn't mention Amaterasu again because she didn't want to. It was because of her that this travesty was happening. She sewed that idea into her husband's brain, and Kushina could never forgive her for that. I see. Huh. While Kushina was surprised about Naruto's lack of reaction, the boy, on the other hand, was feeling conflicted about the whole thing. One part of him wanted to stay with his mother while the other wanted to explore the fun of living alone. So to say he was angry or sad after hearing the news would be a lie. He was either of them. Hey, aren't you sad that you are going to live away from me? Hearing her sad voice, Naruto looked at his mother and smiled at her. Why would I? He asked her, his smile only getting bigger when he saw shock devour her face. I'm going to live a few blocks away from here. Every thought that Kushina was having left her mind as soon as she heard her son's words. What? To say she was surprised would be an understatement. Her son was a prankster like her, but she never thought he was as sly as his father too. It was not long before both the mother and son began to laugh at each other, their smiles emanating nothing but mischief. A few months later. Ko, a small and peaceful town located in the beautiful country of Japan, was a place to die for. Surrounded by dense green forest, the town was a perfect illustration of peace and modern elegance blended harmoniously with nature. From the densely populated streets of the main market district to empty routes leading to the forest, one could always find something new and interesting in the town. The people of the town were exactly how one would assume they would be, very kind and ready to assist anyone in need. In one of the most vibrant neighborhoods of the peaceful town stood the Kanemochi Apartments, an establishment built by and for the rich. Within the building, many families dwelled, and one of them was the Namikazes, currently living in the elegant 23A locale. 23A. Naruto-kun, breakfast is ready. A pair of purplish sapphire eyes slowly opened slowly, regarding everything with mild curiosity and irritation. Is it morning already? The owner of the voice groaned, his voice apathetic to the chirping of the birds outside his room. Naruto and Ai-sama, come fast. Another voice entered the beautifully decorated room of the boy, this one softer than the one before. Sighing to himself, the boy finally unwrapped the blanket from his body, shuddering slightly when the cold breeze of the morning made contact with his skin. I'm coming, Inarine. Just wait for a minute or two, he grumbled as a yawn left his mouth. Raising his hands, he stretched them a bit and began to walk towards the bathroom. I don't want to go to that school. His face slumped at the mere thought of being surrounded by horny girls. He did not want them. If females were going to surround him, then why could not they be a little bit on the mature side of the spectrum? After all, who did not like mature ladies? They were the best, just like the ones in his small family. Unbeknownst to him, a small trickle of blood and drool left his nose and corner of his mouth as he thought that. Troublesome, he added before entering the bathroom. Dining room. As soon as he entered the dining hall, a small smile rose to his lips when his eyes settled on the entrance of the kitchen, where two beautiful girls were preparing breakfast for them. The two were so immersed in their work that they did not even notice him coming down from the room, a thing that was a very rare occurrence because usually one of those two would always be there to greet him in the morning. Naruto, or they didn't. Inari, the goddess of prosperity, abruptly turned around and smiled at her baby boy, giving him what could be called the most adorable look on the planet. Caught off guard, Naruto stumbled a little on his feet but soon collected himself and smiled back at his guardian. "Good morning, Inarine," he mumbled, walking towards the dining table that was positioned in the corner of the hall, surrounded by little flowers and a few pieces of beautiful bonsai. Inari didn't waste any time in leaving the kitchen, her long white hair flailing gently behind her back as she began walking towards him. "Say, did you sleep well, Naruto-kun?" she asked, slowly taking a seat beside Naruto. "Of course." "Then why am I seeing this irritation in your eyes?" She leaned over, her eyes intently regarding her little brother, as she searched for the reason behind his discomfort within them. Naruto gulped, blushing madly at the sudden abatement of the distance between him and his caretaker-cum-sister. His stuttering did not go unnoticed by Inari, who began to laugh at his hopeless suffering. "Oh!" The white-haired girl placed a hand on his right cheek, eliciting an even more fierce reaction from the boy. "Did you see that, Kagaya? Naruto-kun is growing up so fast," she shouted at the other girl who was still working in the kitchen, preparing food for them. "He has now started to blush in front of me." The room deluged in fits of teasing laughter as the goddess took satisfaction in the embarrassment of the boy. Naruto, who was blushing madly because of his beautiful sister, couldn't help but both curse and bless his luck at the same time. On one hand, he was grateful that Amaterasu put these two as his guardians, but on the other hand, these same girls were also the sources of the biggest troubles in his life. His first guardian, Inari, who was a little older than him, had this strange habit of teasing him, sometimes going as far as to make him spank and squeeze her amazingly huge yet firm ass multiple times in private just so that she could atone for the punches she tended to bestow upon him whenever he did something stupid. Kagaya, his other caretaker, was a kind individual. Her innocence and compassion